other meeting places provided and used primarily for parliament purposes for every building of part of or use connection with the proceedings of parliament while it used. For the duration of this meeting, the place will be the precinct of the Gauteng Provincial Legislature. There's the standing rules of the legislature will apply and govern all the engagements of the day. I so declare. Apologies, PC, for interrupting, but we needed to do that formal legal aspect. Thank you.
Okay, let me just restart. The Honorable Chairperson can switch off the engine at any time, so we are at your mercy. To the Honorable Chairperson of the Portfolio Committee on Community Safety, Dr. Bandile Masuku, Honorable Members, Honorable Premier Tate Panyaza Lesufi, the Acting HOD Department for Community Safety, Mr. Roch Mukhorosi, the management of the South African Police Service, representatives from Metropolitan Police Department. I've seen Chief Jaka himself is here personally. Stakeholders present today here, members of the media, ladies and gentlemen, good morning to you. Good morning to you. We are once more again here to present the crime statistics for the fourth quarter for the 2025-2026 financial year, covering the period January to 31st of March 2026. The statistic continues to reflect a downward trend and with a noticeable progress in our efforts to build safer communities. Honorable Chairperson, members, Premier, the overall crime, 17 community reported serious crimes have seen a decrease by 5,066 counts, which translate to 5.2% compared to the corresponding period last year. Hence, the province has a decrease most of the 17 community reported serious crimes except for only 2 crimes, which are arson and commercial crime. Comparatively speaking, across the country, out of 9 provinces, Gauteng accounts to 26% of the country's 17 community reported crimes. As I reflect on the categories or different categories for the crime, for contact crime, which includes offenses such as murder, attempted murder, assault with intent to do grievously bodily harm, and common assault, as well as robbery aggravated, the province has seen a decrease by 2,433 counts, which translate to 5.9% reduction. Both murder and attempted murder we have seen a decrease by 15% and 3.2% respectively. The top 3 causative factors for murders, Honorable Chairperson, Honorable Members, and the Premier, it is arguments, means misunderstanding. We know for the fact that we are carrying a high volume on these crimes. We are, of course, engaging the communities on the ground to ensure that we have a tolerance against each other. Then this is followed by road rage, provocation, vigilantism, and robbery. Honorable Chairperson, members, Honorable Premier, the killing of our police officers on duty and off duty is still a serious concern. We have lost 2 members off duty in the Q2, and of course, I know that for Metro Police, we have also the numbers which we have to count. Looking into the sexual offense as a category, rape decreased by 202 counts, which translate to 9.9%, and sexual assault increased by 5.2%. In addressing this scourge, The Family Violence, Child Protection and Sexual Offences, known as the FCS, continue to bring the perpetrators to book. For the quarter under review, we had 1,287 cases. These cases were presented before court, where 128 sexual offenders were sentenced to combined 19 life terms and 109 years imprisonment. To this end, the FCS continued to work closely with the relevant stakeholders to intensify gender-based violence and femicide with this related awareness campaign towards encouraging the reporting of the incidents. The subcategory robbery with aggravated circumstances, we have seen a notable reduction of 17.1% for the car hijackings. We know car hijackings, Honorable Chairperson, members, Honorable Premier, that it is a challenge within our province. Despite this decrease, we are concerned that we still have high numbers. Kidnapping have increased by 38 counts, which translate to 1.6% during the period under review. This is one thorny area, Honorable Chairperson, members, Honorable Premier. While most kidnappings in the province are attributed to hijacking, our integrated multidisciplinary intervention with our National Anti-Kidnapping, Provincial Organized Crime, the E2 project, which is linked to the security industry, we have to say we are, of course, collaborating with the Business Against Crime South Africa. We have since together have 606 suspects arrested for the period January to March 2026. I think it will be important to make a breakdown for this crime as it is a concern. For the period under review, we had 2,404 kidnappings, of which, as I've indicated, hijacking contribute to high numbers, of which 1,307 is for car hijacking, and the attempts thereof. 415, it is a kidnapping for the purpose of a robbery. 163 is a ransom. 118 is for rape, 17 extortion, 9 for human trafficking. As I've clearly indicated that we have since made arrest for 616. Some of these cases have since appeared in the various courts, and some were withdrawn, while others cases are still pending. Contact-related crimes, this category recorded a reduction by 0.3%. There are 2 crimes reported under this category, which is arson and malicious damage to property. Property-related crime, this category has recorded a decrease by 9.7%, with all offenses reported under the category, namely burglary, residential burglary, business, theft of motor vehicle, theft out of motor vehicle, stocks theft, recording a decrease. Other serious crime category has recorded a decrease by 2.3%. For the quarter under review, this category comprised of crimes such as theft, not mentioned elsewhere, commercial crime, and shoplifting. When we reflect on a crime detected as a result of a police action, here we are expecting an increase instead of decrease. These crimes have seen an increase by 2,447, which translates to 12.2% for the period under review. As I've indicated, the positive upward trend There are 4 offenses in this category, which is illegal possession of firearms and ammunition, drug-related sexual offenses detected as a result of police action, and driving under the influence of alcohol or drugs, of which the drunken driving, we know for the fact that our metropolitan department, including within the within Ekurhuleni, Sidibeni and West Rand, the law enforcement agency, you are putting your hand there, and we have week in, week out, a high number of arrests for drunken driving, which we prevent fatalities on our roads. Honorable Chairperson, members, Honorable Premier, our collective effort as Gauteng Law Enforcement Agency, integrated governmental programs, and our community is yielding a positive result with a notable improvement as we move forward week in, week out with Operation Shanyela 2 and integrated governmental response, which is a IGR. Let me take this opportunity to highlight the successes achieved for Operation Shanyela 2. The total number of arrests for this quarter, Honorable Chairperson, members, Honorable Premier, is 36,122, of which 11,715 were illegal immigrants. I must indicate that per week we are seeing the arrest between 500 and 900 for illegal immigrants. We are mindful of the current situation in the country and what is happening in the province in terms of the anti-foreign national sentiment. As yesterday, we had a clear collaborations with Business Against Crime South Africa, E2 project, of which we're having a memorandum of understanding with the security industry through the National Commissioner. Community engagement, we are ready in terms of ensuring that we maintain law and order within the province. We know for the fact that almost on a daily basis, we are confronted with these sporadic protests, of which we deal with it precisely. Having said that, with these successes, we have seen 155 arrests for murder. We have seen 220 arrests for robberies. Honorable Chairperson, honorable members, honorable Premier, recoveries. We have seen the 278 firearms, of which 26 is rifles, 7 is a shotgun. We have seen also 7,849 various kinds of ammunition. 247 was a dangerous weapon. Notable so, 163 are hijacked, stolen vehicles or motor vehicles, which we have since recovered as a law enforcement agency. These successes and recoveries are only for Shanyela operation and do not include day-to-day operational successes. Honorable Chairperson, members, Honorable Premier, the anti-gang detectives conviction. We know that the province is also affected by gang-related cases. The unit managed to achieve 3 life imprisonments when the Johannesburg High Court sentenced 4 suspects for murder, attempted murder, possession of firearms or possession of unlicensed firearms and ammunition. These suspects, because they are convicted, we can reflect on their names. 3 suspects are Gareth van Wyk, Laurel Rako, Leon Brenda, Marty Brenda, were further sentenced to 24 years imprisonment for crimes committed in the Langlaagte and Sophiatown policing precinct, of which these crimes were committed during 2023. In conclusion, I want to take this opportunity to appreciate all our stakeholders, our private and social partners, community-based structures, as well as the community at large for always willingly to work with the police or the law enforcement agency in a fight against crime. Honorable members, Honorable Chairperson, honorable members, and Honorable Premier, I also want to put emphasis on the positive impact the joint effort of different government departments, of which we are, of course, regaining the community trust with that effort, and hence service delivery to the residents of Gauteng, of which we know for the fact that the whole of government approach remains the future of policing within our province. Honorable Chairperson, members, Honorable Premier, allow me to hand over to our Provincial Crime Register, Brigadier Mthombeni, to present to you comprehensive crime picture of the fourth quarter for 2025-2026 financial year. Once more, as I descend from this podium, I would like to share with you the quote from Mubita Nawa, who once said, "Taking a stand against organized crime isn't just about law enforcement. It is a collective effort with the involvement of communities, institutions, and government worldwide," unquote. As we put forward the reset agenda as it has been reflected by our minister, let's gear up on the integrated crime and violence prevention strategy known as ICVPS, as we echo the slogan of #CrimeMustFall. I thank you.
While they're still busy connecting, Honorable Chair, let me acknowledge Honorable Chairperson of the Portfolio Committee, Dr. This thing is like same height as me. Okay, let me acknowledge Honorable Chairperson of the Portfolio Committee, Dr. Masuku, honorable members of the Portfolio Committee, Honorable Premier, I think who just stepped out, and then all senior managers of SAPS, including the other law enforcement agency, members of media. Honorable Chair, allow me to say all protocol observed for the sake of time. Honorable Chair, about 2 weeks ago, the acting minister as well as acting national commissioner released Q4 crime statistic nationally. We are here today, as PC has indicated, to give Q4, same period, January to March 2026, comparing with the previous period, same year, last year, covering or breaking into details the province of Gauteng. As a norm, we normally start with a crime overview, which we normally refer to as the scoreboard. Just to help you understand this table, because it looks a little bit different to what we usually present. The first 5 columns will reflect, including the category names, will reflect the provincial picture in terms of comparison, the current as well as the previous. And then the last column will cover the district. With the district, please take note that the number that are reflected there, they are not percentage change or case differences. They are actually reflecting the actual number that were recorded by those specific districts. However, the color coding, red and green, the green will indicate that these are the total records that were recorded by the specific district. However, green will indicate that it's on the reduction. And then with red, it will show that that particular number has increased for the period. So, Honorable Chair, when we start with the contact crime for Q4 in Gauteng, we have seen a decrease of 5.9 overall, which is equivalent to 2,433 counts less that we have recorded, with all offenses under the category during Q4 having a decrease. With murder in the province, we decreased by 216, 15%, from 1,439 to 1,223, with all the districts having a decrease during the period. With sexual offenses, there's also a decrease of 188, with only the district of Western having an increase for the period. Attempted murder, we also seen a reduction of 3.2%, with the district of Johannesburg, Citibank, as well as Western having an increase for the attempted murder. Assault with intent to inflict grievous bodily harm, we also saw a reduction of 2.2%, with the district of Ekurhuleni, Citibank, as having an increase. Common assault, overall reduction for quarter of 1.2%, with the district of Ekurhuleni, Citibank, as well as Western having an increase of common assault. Common robbery, a decrease of 4.1%, with the district of Ekurhuleni and Johannesburg having an increase. In terms of robbery with aggravating circumstances for Q4, there was a reduction of 13%, with only the district of Citibank having an increase. When you look at the sexual offenses subcategory, which already accounted for under the overall category of contact crime, rape, there was a decrease of 9.9%, with only the district of Western having an increase. And sexual assault, an increase of 5.2%, 21 counts more, with the district of Ekurhuleni, Johannesburg, as well as Citibank having an increase of sexual assault, whereas Western, it was on stabilization. Attempted sexual offenses, additional count up for quota, with the district of Ekurhuleni, as well as Tshwane having an increase. Contra sexual offenses, a reduction by 8 counts, with Ekurhuleni, as well as Citibank having an increase for Q4. When you look at the subcategory of robbery aggravating, also already accounted for under the category of contact crime. Here we're just looking at the breakdown of the offenses that are accounted for in this category, subcategory. Carjacking for the province decreased by 17.1%, with all the districts having a decrease of the carjacking. Robbery at residential premises, a decrease of 20.4%, 380 counts less, with only the district of Citibank having an increase for Q4. Robbery at non-residential premises, a decrease of 19.1%. All the districts saw a decrease for that particular offense. With the trio, due to carjacking as well as the robberies, both at residential and non-residential having a decrease for quarter, As a result, we saw a decrease of trio crime by 18.6%, 1,005 counts less, so as other 5 districts having a decrease. In terms of robbery of cash in transit, for Q4, in all, we have 15 incidents, which reflected an increase of 2 counts in comparison with the previous period last year, with only Johannesburg, Tshwane, as well as Western having an increase of the CIT. Bank robbery remain unchanged on constant. Truck hijacking, a decrease of 2.1%, with the district of Dzanibe as well as Tshwane having an increase. Moving over to contact related with 2 offenses, which is arson as well as malicious damage to property. With arson, we had additional 3 counts for the quarter, with the district of Johannesburg as well as Dzanibe having an increase. Malicious damage to property, overall reduction of 0.3 with 18 counts less, with the district of Johannesburg, Dzanibe and Tshwane having an increase, while the contact-related crime as a category having a decrease of 0.3%, with Johannesburg, Dzanibe and Tshwane having an increase of that category. Property-related, all 5 offenses reported under category had a decrease, with overall decrease of 9.7 as a category, 1,894 counts less. Starting with the burglaries at non-residential premises, we have seen a reduction of 9.4%, with only the district of Dzanibe having an increase, while at residential premises, we also had a decrease of 12.6, with all the district having a decrease. Theft of motor vehicle, a decrease of 10.3, with only Western having an increase. Theft out of motor vehicle, a decrease by 5.3, 283 counts less, with all district having a decrease. Stock theft, a decrease of 11.2, with only Johannesburg as well as Dzanibe having an increase of the stock theft. Looking at the other serious crime category, overall reduction of 2.3, with only commercial crime having additional 1,138, increasing by 9.4. All districts have an increase in terms of that offense. Theft, all theft not mentioned elsewhere, also known as theft general, a reduction of 11.4%, 1,816. All the districts have recorded a decrease. Shoplifting, a decrease of 1.4%, with 46 counts less. The 2 districts that saw an increase with this offense, shoplifting, is the district of Johannesburg as well as Dzanibe. Other serious crime overall, the category Johannesburg as well as Ekurhuleni had an increase. When you look at the overall broader category, which is 17 community reported, covering all 4 other categories, there's a decrease for province by 5.2%, 5,066 counts less, with only the district of Dzanibe having an increase. In terms of the crime detected as a result of police action, I have to emphasize again, Honorable Chair, that for this one, the desired output or results, we want to see an increase as opposed to the 17 community reported, whereby we want to see a reduction, as to measure the effectiveness of the policing in terms of the arrest, detection, as well as confiscation. So under the category broadly, it has increased by 12.5%, 2,447, with all the districts having an increase of this category. However, in terms of illegal possession of firearm out of 4, there's the offense whereby we saw a decrease by 15%, 155, with all the districts having a reduction for that. In terms of sexual offenses, the only district which was on stabilization is West Rand. With kidnapping, broadly as a province, we have increased by 1.6, with additional 38 counts, with the district of Dzanibe as well as Tshwane having an increase for the period. Now when we move over to crime per capita, this is a slide whereby we want to make a fair comparison between the provinces, as we know that Gauteng might be one of the most populated provinces in terms of population size. However, when we want to bring this population into focus, whereby we want to determine the likelihood or probability of people being victims of crime out of 100,000 population, where the unit of measure is a person. Hence, our focus is the contact crime, because these are the contract against persons. So we have seen overall reduction of crime rate, ranging from murder rate, rape rate, attempted murder, assault with intent to inflict grievous bodily harm, common assault, as well as common robbery. However, reduction is still meaning that although there was a reduction comparing, however, the rate is still high in terms of the volumes that were recorded by the province. Now, when we move at province in relation to contribution towards national figure for contact crime, as a province for Q4, we have contributed 25.3% towards the national figure of the contact crime. Now, when you look at the 3 months, which is making up the quarter, January, February, and March, we have seen a reduction throughout the 3 months, with most notable one that took place in March by 1,568. When you look at the district, only the district of Dzanibe having an increase of 191 counts, which are reflecting 86.4%. Looking at the proportional contribution of the district towards 39,000 of 94 of the contact crime that were accumulated by the province. The highest contributor was Johannesburg in terms of the volumes with 38.5%, followed by the district of Ekurhuleni with 23.4%, Tshwane with 22.9%. These are the heavyweights district of the province, and Dzanibe 8.1%, lastly with Western 7.1%. Honorable Chair, we do have a top 40 station in terms of the volumes, irrespective whether there was a reduction or increase. Here we are ranking the station according to this the third last column in terms of the volumes that were generated. So in interpreting this table, we have the provincial position as well as the RSA position, where this station is standing in terms of the volumes. Just to mention the top 5, Honorable Chair, we do have the Thembisa. In the province is number 1, obviously, and then nationally is standing at position number 8 due to volume. There was an increase of 14 counts. Mentioning the other 4 stations from the top 5, it's Ivory Park, Johannesburg Central, GP, as well as the Rudopos. These top 5 are mainly from Ekurhuleni, as well as the district of Johannesburg. So overall summary of this station, we have the top station, 12 stations that are featuring in the national list of the national top 30 for Q4, with the 23 stations recording a decrease, while the 17 had an increase, with Everton having the highest increase of 91 counts for those that reflected an increase, and then for those that had a reduction, it's Hillbrow having the highest reduction of 160 counts. These are the remainers of our top 40 for contact crime. With this station alone, out of 145 stations in the province, they have contributed 51.4% towards overall figure of contact crime in the province for Q4. Now, when you move over to crimes in terms of where they are linked with domestic violence, here we are using DV as a proxy for GBV. So in the province in total, we have 8,352 counts that were linked to domestic violence. From that 8,352, 37% is proportionally coming from Johannesburg district, followed by the district of Tshwane with 24, Ekurhuleni with 22, Western with 9% of that, and Dzanibe with 8%. Now, when you look at the offenses whereby they were linked with domestic violence, starting with the top 3 in terms of volumes, of the common assault cases that were reported, 4,450 of those were linked to domestic violence. And the other issue was assault with intent to inflict grievous bodily harm with 1,650, as well as malicious damage to property with 1,481. Let me also zoom into murder, attempted murder, and rape. Of all the murder that were reported, 21 of those were linked to domestic violence, with Ekurhuleni as well as Johannesburg accounting 7 of that 21, Tshwane with 4, and Western with 2 and 1, Dzanibe with murder linked to domestic violence. Attempted murder in total with 89 of those, rape with 161 of those that were linked to DV. Now when we move over to murder, we have seen a reduction of murder in the month of January, February, as well as March, with all the districts having a reduction of murder during the quarter. In terms of the contribution, 39.2% of the murder that occur in the province for quarter 4 are coming from Johannesburg, followed by Ekurhuleni with 29%, and then Tshwane with 12.8%, Sedibeng with 10.5%, and West Rand with 8.5%. When you look at the sample that we have analyzed in order to determine the motive behind this murder that took place, of the 1,223, we took 81% of those in order to establish the causative factor, which means 995 of those murders were further analyzed to establish the causative factors. With argument, misunderstanding, as well as provocation still continue and persisting to be the most contributing factor towards our murder. These are socially related incidents whereby 172 of those had an effect in terms of the murder that took place. The second most highest contributor is vigilantism with 74, and robbery related, whereby the victims were robbed before they could be murdered, with 68, and then retaliation, revenge, as well as punishment with 47. Let me also touch on the illicit mining with 11. Most of these are coming from the district of Ekurhuleni as well as West Rand, and gag related mainly from the Johannesburg district with 10. The other phenomenon that still persists, Honorable Chair, in terms of generating volumes with our murders is the incidents whereby we have multiple murder. This whereby in one incident we encounter more than one victim. You find out in one incident there were 2 or more victims that were murdered. So in total, Gauteng, 50 multiple murder dockets were open with total of 135 victims that were murdered. And then the other issues, we had 2 officers that were murdered off duty. In relation to farming community, we have 3 in total. In most cases of this one, they are second charge toward, because in the 2 of the resident, the other one, the body was discovered within the small holding precinct, and the other one was the issue of house robbery, including the farmer, whereby there was a house robbery as a second charge to murder, where the farmer was murdered. Now, when we look at the place of occurrence where this murder took place, under the same sample size that we took to establish the causative factor, here we are determining the place of occurrence. So public place as well, such as street, open field, parking area, accounted 664 from that 995 cases accounts that we have analyzed. The second highest place where these incidents commonly took place is residence of a perpetrator or victim, meaning this is the place mostly known either by the victim or the perpetrator with 215. And the second highest place is liquor outlets with 28 counts of those. Now, when you look at the instrument used during the commission of this murder, firearms still persist to also be the instrument which is preferred by this perpetrator during the commission of crime with 488. Honorable Chair, let me also reiterate on this one. The 488 does not reflect the number of firearms that we use. However, it reflects number of people that were killed, because you happen to find out in one incident, one firearm can kill more than one person. Hence here, we are projecting number of people that were killed, not number of firearms that were used. The second highest instrument that is mostly or commonly preferred is knife with 102, and the third highest is sharp instrument with 43, under the same sample that we took to determine the causative factor as well as the place of occurrence. Honorable Chair, we do have the top 40 of murder, of which the top 8 of those also feature in the national list of murder. Top 5 being GP, Alexandra, Ivory Park, El Dorado Park, as well as Beggersdal. GP ranking number 1 in the province, 14 in the province, even though we have seen a reduction by 5 counts with GP. However, the recorded volume for Q4 are still high, hence they still retaining position 1 in terms of the MEDA in the province. These are the remainders of our top 40, Honorable Chair, for MEDA, of which these top 40 stations alone, out of 145, contributed 61.3% towards overall figure of MEDA in Gauteng for Q4. Now, when you move over to rape, we also seen a reduction throughout the 3 months of the quarter for January, February, as well as March. Looking at the districts, only the district of West Rand having an increase for rape by 9 counts, 7.5%. In terms of the contribution towards 1,840 of rape counts that were accumulated by the province, Johannesburg is taking 36.7% of that, followed by Ekurhuleni with 24.3%, Tshwane 23.7%, Citibank 8.3%, with West Rand 7%. Looking at the place of occurrence for this matter, for this rape, we took a sample of 58.9, roughly 59%. 1,840, we analyzed 1,084 to establish the place where these incidents took place. So residence of a perpetrator, victim, accounting 738 of that. Public place with 246. Leisure places such as hotel, guest houses, B&B, motel, holiday resort with 15 of those. Looking at the top 40 of rape stations in Q4 for Gauteng, mentioning the top 5, which also feature in the national list, is Roodepoort, Ivory Park, Rietgaard, Diepsloot, as well as Acacia. With Roodepoort occupying position 1 in the province, number 10 in the national. Even though they have reduced their rape for Q4, their volumes are still high because they found themselves in position 1. In summary of this top 40, 18 stations recorded a decrease, 2 on stabilization, and 20 recorded an increase for rape, with Acacia having the highest in terms of that, saw an increase by 16 counts, and Orange Farm recorded the highest for those that reflected the reduction for Q4. These are the remainders of our top 40 rape station for Q4, of which this station alone accounted 57.1% of rape figure from 145 stations in the province. Moving over to carjacking, Honorable Chair, for January, February, March, we also saw a reduction of carjacking, even though the volumes are still high, with all the districts having a reduction throughout. With the contribution of 2,062, Johannesburg accounting for 41.3%, Ekurhuleni 27% of the carjacking figure in the province. We have a station in total, top 40, 23 station, meaning 78% of the station that making up the national top 30 are alone coming from Gauteng, with the top 5 being Alexandra, Kempton Park, Ivory Park, Eldorado Park, as well as Bramley. You notice that with Alexandra, it's number 1 both nationally as well as province, with an increase of 32 counts. Looking at the summary of this top 40, 18 stations from the top 40 recorded a decrease, while 28 of those stations recorded an increase, with Alexandra being the highest in terms of those stations that saw an increase by 32 counts, with Jabulani for those that reflected the reduction with 34 counts. The remainders of our top 40 station, this station alone contributed 60.5% towards our overall figure of carjacking in Gauteng for Q4. Now, when we move over to robbery at residential premises, we also seen a reduction throughout 3 months of the quarter, January, February, and March. With the district, only the district of Citibank having additional 24 counts, 15.3% increase. In terms of the contribution towards 1,480 overall counts that were recorded by the province, Johannesburg is taking 34% of those, followed by Ekurhuleni with 24.7% and Tshwane 21.3%. Those are the heavyweight district, the top 3. Looking at the top 40, 15 of those, 50% of the national station are coming from Gauteng for robbery at residential premises. Our top 5 being Everton, Dobsonville, Orange Farms, Temba, as well as Honeydew. All the top 5 have an increase of robbery at residential figure for Q4. With the top 40, 20 stations recorded a decrease, while the 2 Stable, 2 stations remain unchanged, were on stabilization, and the 18 station indicated a decrease. Of those that reflected an increase, Dobsonville with 29 counts highest, and then Mabopane for those that reflected a reduction by 37 counts lower. These are the remainders of our robberies at residential premises, top 40 station. This station alone contributed 59.2% towards a figure of Gauteng robbery at residential premises figures for Q4. Robbery at non-residential premises, we have also seen a reduction throughout 3 months of the quarter, January, February, as well as March, with all the district having a reduction, with the district of Johannesburg accounting 38.9%, followed by Ekurhuleni with 29.2%, Tshwane with 17%, both Dzanibe as well as West Rand share a same proportional contribution of 7.5% towards the figure of robbery at residential premises in the province for Q4. Honorable Chair, we have a top 40, of which 14 of those, the top 40, feature in the national list with Johannesburg Central, Tsakane, Midrand, Lenasia, as well as Benoni, with Johannesburg Central having to be in position 1 both nationally and province. However, there was the reduction of 6 counts, even though the volumes are still high despite the reductions. With the summary of those top 40, 14 stations indicated a decrease, while 7 remain unchanged, and 19 indicated an increase. With Lenasia, for those that reflected an increase with additional 8 counts, and Kempton Park, for those that reflected a decrease with 12 counts lower. These are the remainders of our top 40, with this station alone contributing 55.8% towards overall figure of Gauteng robbery at non-residential premises for Q4. Now, when we move over to robberies of cash in transit, the CITs, January, February, we have seen an increase of the CIT, with March decreasing by 5. In all total, we have 15 incidents with the reflected increase of 2, with the district of Johannesburg having an increase by 3 counts, while Tshwane as well as West Rand each share a equal 1 count. With the contribution from the district, Johannesburg accounting 53.3%, followed by Tshwane with 20%, as well as Ekurhuleni with 13.3%. Looking at the method of execution during this CIT when they took place, the cross pavement, it's 7 of those. This is whereby the armored vehicle is targeted, while it's stationary. Basically, they target the security when they're about to board into the vehicle with the money. And then vehicle on the road, this is whereby they mainly target the vehicle either by shooting the tire or the windows. So most of these incidents, they happen that where the firearm is used as well as they are bombing the vehicle. Looking at the distribution of these 2 execution methods from the district with cross pavement of the 7, Ekurhuleni is accounting 2 of those, Johannesburg with 3, Tshwane with 2, West Rand with 1, and then AV on the road with Johannesburg taking 5 of those, Dzanibe 1 as well as Tshwane. In terms of the company that we targeted, is FCS with 6 and Easy Cash with 9. Now, when you look at the truck hijacking, it's only during the month of March, whereby we had an increase by 5 counts, whereas January and February, we had a reduction of truck hijacking that were recorded in the province. With the district, the increases were reflected, and that's Tshwane with 12 counts and Dzanibe with 9. The contribution by the district towards the truck hijacking figure, the highest from Ekurhuleni with 37.1%, followed by Tshwane with 19.4%, and Dzanibe with 19%, Johannesburg with 17.7%, and then the district of West Rand with 6.8%. Honorable Chair, we have a top 40 station, of which in total 25 stations, meaning 83% of the stations from the national top 30 are coming from Gauteng for truck hijacking. Just to mention, the top 5 from our top 40 is Alberton, Orange Farms, Germiston's, Mamelodi East, as well as Kempton Park, with all the top 5 having an increase, with Alberton as well as Orange Farm, Germiston, Meyerton, and Kempton Park up until 15. All the stations, they rank same position both nationally as well as provincially. The remainders of our truck hijacking station for Q4, they have contributed 86.5% towards the provincial figure for Q4. With the kidnappings, we have seen an increase overall for January, February, as well as March, with the district of Dzanibe and Tshwane having an increase, while in terms of the contribution from the district of Johannesburg, they accounting 39.6%, with Ekurhuleni 25.9%, with Tshwane 16.8%, Dzanibe 11.3%, and West Rand with 6.5%. Looking at the circumstances around this kidnapping, as PC indicated in the opening remarks, most of our kidnappings are attributed to carjacking. Here, the idea is not necessarily to kidnap, but they want to hijack you, irrespective of how long they keep you in the car, even if it's 5 minutes. But for a mere fact that they kept you in the vehicle against your will, freedom of movement was deprived. We consider that as kidnapping. From the sample of 2,404, out of that, 1,307 were kidnapping in relation to hijacking as well as attempts. The second is robbery related with 415, where ransoms were demanded, it's 163. Rape related kidnapping is 118, and extortion is 17, and human traffic is 9. Honorable Chair, we have top 40 for kidnapping, of which in the national list we have 27 stations out of 30, meaning 90% of the national top 30 kidnapping stations are coming from Gauteng, with Kempton Park, Protea, Ivory Park, Eldorado Park, and Everton GP are coming from the district of Ekurhuleni as well as Johannesburg and Dzanibe. All the top 5 stations have an increase of the kidnapping for Q4. In relation to the summary of the station, only 10 stations out of 40 having a decrease of the kidnapping, while the figure remain unchanged, and 29 have indicated an increase. In terms of the Kempton Park, for those that reflected an increase for Q4, it has recorded additional 29 counts more, with 4 slow runs for those that reflected a reduction, with the highest of 26 counts lower. These are the remainders of our top 40 kidnapping station, with this station alone contributing 58.2% towards overall figure of kidnapping in Gauteng for Q4. Property related, we have seen a reduction through 3 months of the quarter, January, February, as well as March, with all the districts having a decrease. In terms of the contribution by the district was that 17,613. We are having Johannesburg accounting 32.6% of that figure, followed by Tshwane with 29.7%, Ekurhuleni with 23.1%, West Rand with 7.4%, with Dzanibe 7.3%. We also do have a top 40 honorable chair for top property related for Q4, of which 10 of those, the top 10 of those feature in the national list. In terms of the summary, 31 station recorded a decrease, with 9 stations indicating an increase. And of those that reflected the decrease, Kempton Park highest with 58 counts. And for those that reflected the decrease, with Pretoria West with a total of 96 counts that they had a reduction on. Looking at the contribution of this top 40 towards the provincial picture, they have contributed 51.5% for Q4. In conclusion, Honorable Chair, this is just a summary to reflect the performance overall of the province. Out of 17 committees reported to have a look in terms of the increases, stabilization, as well as the decreases. As a province, out of 17 community reported offenses, we have an increase of 2, which is arson as well as commercial crime, and then we decrease 15 of those. And then looking at the district, Tshwane increased 2 offenses, and then 15 of offenses saw a decrease. In relation to Ekurhuleni, in total 4 offenses recorded an increase, while 13 had a decrease. West Rand 5 of the increase and 12 decrease, and Johannesburg district increase of 7 offenses out of 17, whereas the 10 recorded a decrease. And lastly, Dzanibe in total increased 10 offense and a decrease of 7 offense. In relation to the CDPA, the increases for the province, the decreases for the province was the illegal possession of firearms, whereas the other officers have recorded an increase. With that said, Honorable Chair, I thank you.
Thank you. I think one of the key aspects that you have raised is the issue of the volume. Whilst we have seen a decrease mainly, but the volume still is a big issue. Let's continue with all the presentations from the SAPs, and then we'll then engage on it. I'm hoping that honorable members, we have since been joined by the Deputy Chairs of Chairs, who's also a member of the committee, Member Gunene. Let's just complete them. I think we basically know the background, so just have to just deal with the issues of progress. Thank you.
Thank you. Greetings to the Honourable Chairperson and the Honourable members of the committee, the Honourable Premier, HOD, Provincial Commission and management, all other stakeholders. Allow me also to stand on the protocol that was already observed this morning. Yes, Honourable Chairperson, as per the request, there's specific focus areas that the committee requires feedback on a quarterly basis when we also release the crime statistics. And hence we will provide some progress on interventions that were employed by SAPs during this quarter as well, relating to illegal mining, gang-related violence, human trafficking and kidnapping, vigilantism, second-hand goods and dealers in scrapyards, recovery of firearms, and then lastly schools and health facility safety. When we look at the progress that we've done in terms of intervention to curb illegal mining within the province, we know that there's 25 precincts that is problematic in terms of illegal mining activities spread across 4 of our 5 policing districts. We can see in the West Rand district there's 8 police stations, namely Bekkersdal, Carletonville, Kagiso, Krugersdorp, Magaliesburg, Mosselbaai, and Randfontein and Western area, which experience problems in terms of illegal mining. Secondly, Ekurhuleni district, there's 9 stations which are listed there that experience problems. Johannesburg district, there's 6 stations. Cleveland, Doornkorp, Florida, Langlaagte, Mondiaard and Roodepoort. And then lastly in the City district, there's 2 stations, namely the Deer and Heidelberg, that is dealing with this phenomenon. Now, interventions to address illegal mining is done across all our organization levels, being the local level as the station level, with intensified high visibility operations, targeted deployment of the resources at these identified illegal hotspots. We also then have support from the district level, where district operations in support of the priority stations are conducted on a weekly basis in accordance with a planned matrix by means of a multidisciplinary approach, and it also includes other government departments. We move to our next organization level, which is the provincial level, where there's continued functioning of the Prof Joint's Priority Committee for the planning and evaluation of all the provincial illegal mining operations in terms of our own directives. There's also special combat operations are furthermore launched when tactical information is received related to illegal mining activities and operations, which are supported by specialized units that we all know now in terms of the deployment of the SANDF with the SAPs in terms of Operation Karabo and Prosper to address illegal mining, also with the assistance of DPCI, JMPD, the MPD, the Gauteng Traffic Air Wing, and then there's a number of other units that is also responsible for addressing this illegal mining aspects at the hotspots, as I mentioned in the earlier slide. And deployment of these are done in terms of our 5-pillar approach. When we look at the operational activities, Honourable Chair and Honourable Members, in terms of the 4th quarter, that is for the period of January to March specific, in relation to illegal mining activities, operations that were conducted focusing on illegal mining was 162 within the province. Awareness campaigns conducted with 35. Visits to these mines or diggings was 2,084, and searches conducted was 51, giving us a total of 2,332 activities conducted around illegal mining. Some of the successes achieved during these operations are reflected on the slide in terms of undocumented persons which were arrested were 1,303. 8 of arrests in terms of illegal dealing in firearms and liquors. Drug-related crime is 71, and then unlawful possession of firearms and ammunition is 1 each, bringing the total of arrests in this space at 1,384. During these operations, there's also confiscations that is done, and these are reflected in the table on the slide. I might not necessarily go through all of them. Firearms, 17 were confiscated. Ammunition, 1,948. There's grams of aluminium, brass, and copper, over 11,000. Precious metals, gold dust, diamonds, platinum, grams, 1.2 million. There's a number of gas bottles, pendukas, which is used in the crushing of the stones, stampers, and steel pot crushers that has been confiscated. When we move to the Directors of Priority Crime Investigation, the DPCI or the Hawks, we know that while SAPS is responsible for level 1 and 2, the DPCI is responsible for level 3 to 5 of the criminal value chain in respect of this. So they continue with their key partners and making significant strides in combating illegal mining through their coordinated raids, multi-agency collaboration, and strategic prosecutions. They're also working with the Financial Intelligence Center and the National Prosecuting Authority to trace and freeze illicit proceeds of illegal mining operations. They engage cross-border with other provinces who also have problems with illegal mining. Examples mentioned, there is Limpopo in the northwest, and then there's also collaboration with the Department of Mineral and Petroleum Resources, the DMPR, as well as the private sector, mine security, to address this matters. The persistence of organized syndicates and cross-border crime highlights that the challenge remains systemic and deeply rooted. The DPCI in Gauteng, however, aims to intensify the intelligence-driven investigations by aligning enforcement with socio-economic interventions and community engagement, and then proactively shaping a sustainable multidimensional response to curb the illegal mining. From January to March, the DPCI sharpened the intelligence-led targeting of illegal mining syndicates, strengthened financial disruption with the asset forfeiture unit, and also intensified the multi-agency operations. Just at the bottom of the slide, the DPCI introduced several new interventions and advanced surveillance technologies, expanded investigations, explosives, supply chains, and strengthened cross-border intelligence cooperation. They also adopted and enhanced data-driven analytics to better map illegal mining hotspots and support targeted operational planning. When you look at the financial and asset tracing, just the Hawks serious economic offense and financial investigation components, so they work alongside the AFU, the Asset Forfeiture Unit, to trace, freeze, and confiscate proceeds of crime linked to illegal mining syndicates. And this ensures that investigation yield both criminal and financial accountability, aligning with national anti-money laundering objectives. There's just an example that was given there in terms of a case of organized criminal grouping that they had a preservation order of 3 million, which was obtained already in 27 March 2025. A forfeiture for gold worth 787,000 rand was also obtained on the same date. And then a preservation order for cash amounting to 553,000 was obtained in July 2025. And then all these suspects were addressed, and the project was successfully closed on the 27th of February 2026, which falls within the scope of this quarter. Furthermore, in terms of their successes that they achieved in terms of preservation and forfeiture successes, there's a number of projects that has been listed there. Notably, the first one in terms of Sandton is worth 43 million rand that the preservation order was obtained. And there's a number of others ranging from 117,000 to 119,000. On that slide, the total is just over 59,300,000 in terms of preservation orders that were achieved. It continues on the next slide in terms of the OR Tambo International Airport with 17,500, 180,000 in Linden, another in Linden case was 55,000, and in Boyson's case was 20,000 bringing the grand total of asset forfeiture and preservation orders to 59,607,090 rand for the quarter under review. Other successes that were achieved by the DPCI in terms of the stations mentioned there: in Dzanibe, gold-bearing material with an estimated value of 1.8 million was confiscated and 4 arrests were made. In Carltonville, amalgam to the value of just over R1 million with 1 arrest. In Linden, palladium to the value of 90,000 rand and gold-bearing material with a value of 50,000 rand with 2 arrests made. Brakpan, there was gold-bearing material with a value of 7,000 rand and platinum with an estimated value of 1.2 million rand, also with 1 arrest. And then in Mthombeni on the West Rand, gold-bearing material with an estimated value of 150,000 was seized and 5 arrests were made. In total then, the value of the seizures were just over 3.2 million and 13 arrests made by the DPCI in that area. When we move to the progress interventions to address gang-related crimes, we know that we also employ our 5-pillar approach in this environment to deal with gang-related violence within the province. The first pillar is intelligence gathering, analysis and coordination. I think the committee, Honourable Chairperson, Honourable members, are well versed with the hotspot areas that we focus on, namely Boysons, Eldorado Park, Enderdale, Langlaagte, Lenasia, Toekomsrus, which is the Mthombeni policing area, Moffat View, Noordgesig in the Orlando policing area, Reiger Park and Sophia Town. Just to give some feedback in terms of the Johannesburg district at the current moment, the gang grouping Varador Quartet, also known as the Varadors or VCs, operate in the same area as the fast guns, hence the continued fighting over their drug territory. The areas of the 2 mentioned gangs are interlinked due to family ties of the mentioned gangs residing in these areas, namely in Sophia Town, mostly in Westbury, Eldorado Park, extensions 1, 2, 3 and 4, Riverley and Langlaagte, Bella Vista and Criswell, in Boysons, as well as South Hills in Moffat View. Both the Varador Quartets as well as the fast guns groupings operate in the Johannesburg district, and conflict between the 2 groupings continues within this district, which is mostly affected by the gang activities. It has also been noticed that younger boys, which are aspiring gang members, are being utilized as shooters, and this may be considered then as an initiating process by the gangs, as killing a person is regarded as a prerequisite to join a gang in order to prove their loyalty. We continue with the Johannesburg district. It's also been observed that prominent and high-ranking gang members from both groups are being targeted. The gangs also target drug territories of drug dealers who do not form part of a specific gang to work for the gang, and if they do not adhere, then they get eliminated. And we've also been established that the Varadors are involved in crimes listed there below, namely murder, attempted murder, drug dealing, proliferation of firearms and ammunition, Uber robberies in especially Eldorado Park, Lenasia South, Riverley and Westbury, and then hijacking of vehicles in Roodepoort and the Four Ways area. A new gang known as the Firma gang has been identified as operating in the Eldorado Park area. The gang is dealing in drugs, mainly cat, crystal meth, heroin and cocaine in the areas of Eldorado Park, Lenasia and South Hills, that is in Moffat View. These areas are known to be the territory of the Varador Quartet and Fast Guns gang, and the new gang may be seen as invading the space of the established gang groupings and may further escalate the gang turf war. Many suspects are being arrested for being in possession of ammunition, especially in the Eldorado Park and Sophia Town areas, and this indicates that there are different role players when committing these crimes, where one individual will be holding the ammunition whilst the other person will handle the firearm. So once an arrest is effected, they're only charged with one offence, either possession of the firearm or possession of the ammunition, and not both. Honourable Chair, honourable members, when we look at the Ekurhuleni district, following groupings are situated within that area: the Vatos Locos, as well as the Sour Boys. And for many years, the Sour Boys, the Dugans, the Terrible Serpents, and Justice were locked in violent conflict over control of drug distribution areas. These groups were also deeply involved in vehicle-related crimes and various forms of robbery. Over the years, the Serpents and the Sour Boys then formed an alliance to form a stronger monopoly in the area and take out the Dugans, who were in alliance with the terrible gangs. Intelligence gathered has revealed that there are now 2 rival gangs groups operating in Reiger Park, known as the Vatos Logos and the Sour Boys, as I mentioned earlier. And these 2 gang groupings are in conflict with one another over the drug turf. As a result of this conflict, they shoot and murder each other, thus creating a safe environment for the community of Reiger Park. And the areas of operation have also spread to Windmill Park, Geluksdal and Nigel. Further, in terms of the Ekurhuleni district, the Sour Boys were also involved in smuggling of drugs to Morabie and the Boksburg prisons, and it was alleged that the prison wardens received a profit to ensure their compliance. Children of these gangs and other gang members also formed groups of small young gangsters idolizing their fathers, uncles, and some of the names that we have mentioned here is the Hell Kids and the Dogs, which are the sons of the Dugan gang members, and incidents of murder and attempted murder are being reported, but to a lesser extent in these younger groupings. Tension between the Sour Boys and the Vatos Locos has been noted in the last quarter from January to March within Reiger Park, and increased shootings have been reported, for which the reason therefore is currently under investigation. Still continuing in terms of Pillar 1, our intelligence gathering analysis and coordination in terms of the mitigating measures. There's a number of them highlighted on the slide, inclusive of the intensive interviewing and interrogation of both victims and suspects, profiling and purifying of the list of repeat offenders and parolees, including those that were released on bail, profiling and purifying of the list of circulated wanted accused, the identification of drug outlets and targeting those as they are feeders to the gang environment. Cases which are withdrawn are reviewed by the detective environment for possible re-enrollment in court, intensified collection efforts on priority targets, and targets of the 2 main opposing gangs were identified, and they are targets of a long-term project that has been initiated. Honourable Chairperson, we move on to Pillar 2 of the 5-pillar approach, being that of proactive policing, high visibility, where a visible policing component mainly comes in, with the following activities. They have regular school searches, drug awareness, and school safety campaigns which are conducted at all the identified schools in the targeted areas. There's community outreach and targeted street and Mthombeni in these areas. They're improving youth-related activities at reducing drug abuse and gang-related violence of activities. They also encourage the community to identify drug hotspots, lolly lounges, gang-infested areas and the like, and report that to the police. Expose problematic liquor outlets which are closing after hours, selling liquor to minors and allowing firearms and other dangerous weapons into their premises, which we know is not allowed. And they recruit and deploy community patrollers in all of the identified areas with the aim of enhancing visibility at drug and gang-related hotspots, reduce criminal activity, and improve community and police relationships. Honourable Chair, honourable members, we move on in terms of specific activities that were conducted by the visible policing environment within those priority areas. The stations are mentioned there. I'll just focus on the totals of our activities that were conducted during the quarter in terms of community awareness campaigns. In those stations mentioned, there were a total of 617 campaigns. School safety campaigns conducted were 122. Schools premises search for the quarter were 309. Adopt a Cop programs at these schools implemented were 47. Number of community patrollers utilized in these areas 573, and Gauteng traffic wardens 816. We know that they have been gazetted, but their training is still waiting to be finalized. We will move to Pillar 3, which is our combat approach, rapid response, and mostly these activities are executed by the anti-gang unit that has been established within the province. Day-to-day operations that were conducted during the period is over 7,700, of which 200 were focused mainly on drugs, 393 were disruptive operations, and there were a total of 183 arrests made, as mentioned in the slides below, in the slide below of the stations there, with the highest being 69 arrests in the Sapphire Town area and 38 within Eldorado Park and 35 within Reiger Park, and the rest then to a lesser extent, which total 183. Further, also by the anti-gang unit, there were a number of confiscations that were done during these operations for the fourth quarter. The first part of the column relates to a number of drugs, cannabis, cats, mandrax tablets, crystal meth, nyope, crack cocaine, heroin, magic mushrooms, wunga and cat that were confiscated with a total in grams that has been indicated there. Ammunition that were confiscated was 226, revolvers or pistols were 9, and firearms or part of firearms including magazines were 6. Other confiscations were over 19,000, cell phones 1, military explosives 9, and then there were 1 motorbike and 2 vehicles were confiscated also during these operations. Still in terms of Pillar 3, our combat approach, the anti-gang unit also visits schools in the areas to make sure that they address the young ones in this area. In Eldorado Park, you see there's 4 schools that has been visited: Silver Oaks, Missouri Line, Lansvale, Willow and Sapphire Town, Westbury Senior and Westbury Primary, as well as the Vorentoe Secondary School. In Langlaagte area, there were 2 schools visited, Riverlea High and Riverlea Primary. In Boys and Saps, there was John Addison High School, and in Reiger Park, there was 2 schools, Oostrand Commerce and also the Reiger Park Secondary School that were visited. We move to Pillar 4, Honourable Chairperson and members, which is our reactive approach, and these cases is investigated by organised crime component. For the quarter, they received a total number of 16 dockets, of which 12 of the dockets went to court and 4 of the dockets is still under investigation. At the bottom of the slide, you'll just see a breakdown of these cases in terms of murder. There was 3 court dockets, 2 attempted murder dockets, 4 possession of ammunition, and 3 other dockets, which gives a total of 12 that went to court and under investigation. There's still 2 for murder, 2 for attempted murder, giving us a total of 4. When we look at the breakdown in terms of the different police stations where these dockets were collected, for murder to court, there were 3. One is in Sophia Town, one is in Eldorado Park, and one was in Langlaagte. Under investigation, there's still 2 under investigation, one in Sophia Town, one in Eldorado Park. In terms of attempted murder, there was 2 to court and 2 still under investigation. Possession of firearm, 4 went to court, and others 3 give us a total of 16. Further breakdown in terms of the cases that were done by the organised crime unit and arrests. There we can see there was a total of 24 arrests in 16 cases, which is broken down in terms of murder, attempted murder, firearms and ammunition possession, and then arrest for others. Where in Sophia Town, Langlaagte, Eldorado Park, Brixton, arrests were made, bringing the total of those 7 arrests in 5 cases, and as I indicated, 24 arrests in total in 16 cases. The committee, Honourable Chairperson and members, also then previously requested that when we do the presentation, we flag some successes that has been achieved by the anti-gang unit and the organised crime unit in the dealing with the gangs. In terms of Eldorado Park, there was an accused by the name of Delano Williams, which were found guilty on the 24th of February in the Protea Court on charges of possession of firearm and possession of ammunition. Was sentenced for the first charge on 8 years imprisonment, and the second charge 5 years, which was suspended for 5 years. Langlaagte case next, there was 3 charges of murder, 3 charges of attempted murder, possession of firearm as well as possession of ammunition against Raven Abrahams. He was convicted on the 25th of February in the Johannesburg High Court, and he received 3 life imprisonment sentences. He received 4 10 years sentences as well as 5 years for the counts upon which he was found guilty. On the next slide, we see there was a Langlaagte case with 2 counts of murder and 1 of attempted murder. Relul Rankow and Gert van Wyk, both of them were found guilty on the 6th of March in the Johannesburg High Court, and they received 2 life imprisonments as well as a sentence of 10 years. And then lastly, there was Sean Manuel that was convicted on the 18th of March in the Boyson's Court for possession of drugs, where he received a fine of 900 rand or 3 months imprisonment. When we look at the last pillar in terms of our 5-pillar approach dealing with the gangs, for the period under review there, we had a total of 48 media releases and press statements which were issued in respect of gang and related cases to also keep the community up to speed in terms of what is happening in that area. Honourable Chair, honourable members, we will move to the next area of focus that we requested to provide feedback on, and that is human trafficking and kidnapping. In terms of the human trafficking, it's the responsibility of the Directorate of Priority Crime Investigation. In terms of the first paragraph, they still continue to implement the 4P framework, which relates to prevention, protection, prosecution, and partnerships. I will not read through all the details, but they'll also conduct their community awareness and prevention programs, public education and visibility, multi-agency collaboration, victim support and protection, and lastly then operational oversight to continue active investigations and intelligence-led monitoring and trafficking networks across Gauteng, particularly in Ekurhuleni, Johannesburg, and Tshwane. When you look at the docket workflow for the DPCI in relating to human trafficking cases for the fourth quarter, there are 36 case dockets and inquiries which was carried over from the previous quarter and still under investigation. There was one case docket that was received for this period, and they finalized 6 inquiries during the quarter. Kidnapping is dealt with in terms of the organized crime area, organized crime investigation, and they continue to look at financial investigation integration, where ransom payment through banks and mobile apps are traced, working with SABRIC, as well as financial institutions to disrupt the money flow and prevention of large ransom payments. Technology and private sector partnership using the Eyes and Ears project of BAC, and also integrating CCTV, GPS, and private security intelligence where victims are located faster, and monitor syndicate movements. Counter police impersonation tactics are employed, victim rescue and operational outcomes, and lastly then hotspot and intelligence driven deployment in terms of geospatial hotspot analysis, direct task teams to high risk areas, and then enabling of early disruption of organized kidnapping networks. There's specific teams in terms of the organized crime that also deals with this aspect of kidnapping for ransom, and for the quarter they dealt with 3 cases which were mentioned there. There's a Beckersdal case where a South African citizen was being kidnapped and a ransom amount of 5 million was claimed, 50,000 were paid. The suspect or the victim was released, nobody was arrested. In Roodepoort there was a Portuguese national that was kidnapped for a ransom of 3,078,000 rand was paid, but there was 3 people that were arrested in that case, and the victim was rescued. And lastly in Langlaagte there was also a Chinese national, a child that was held the ransom of $500,000. $4,300 were paid, and there was also 4 arrests that were made in that case. When we moved to vigilantism, we saw earlier when the slide in terms of content crimes were presented that vigilantism is indicated as the second highest aspect that is responsible for murders in terms of our murder rate of content crimes. There was a breakdown of 74 cases that were mentioned. Here we can just see in terms of where they occurred. For the period under the review, as I indicated, there were 74 cases with 54 arrests. And on the slide we can see the number of stations, or the stations where this occurred, the number of cases as well as the number of arrests that were made. You can see the highest number on that slide was Ivory Park with murder cases 6. Arrests were made in Actonville, 4 arrests. In Aduza 4 arrests. In Davidton there was 1 arrest, and then in Pitfontein there was 5 arrests made in 1 murder case. On the next slide, still in Ekurhuleni, Thembisa South, Tokoza and Sekane, and Zonkisizwe. You can see there's the highest is 3, and then at the bottom there Dobsonville within the Johannesburg area at 4 cases with 7 arrests. Alexandra 2 cases with 3 arrests, and you can also see other arrests were made in Diepsloot. Still in Johannesburg, Jabulani, Lenasia, South Meadowlands, Morocco and Roodepoort, Jeppe and Tiptown were prone to vigilantism, with a number of cases there being Jabulani at 3, Tiptown at 3, but the rest were also made in Jabulani 7, Meadowlands 3, Morocco 5. And below it's a Tshwane district. The highest there is Mamelodi East with 4 cases of murder and 3 arrests were made. Olivenhout 2 with no arrest. It continues on the next slide in terms of Pretoria West, Rietgat, Soshanguve 3, and we can see there in Soshanguve there were 9 arrests also affected with Rietgat, which have 2 arrests. Garankura had 3 cases with no arrests made. On the last slide, in terms of our vigilantism, you can see then also then the total of 74 cases with 54 arrests which were made over the period under review. Honourable Chairperson, honourable members, the next point of priority that demanded feedback in terms of the second-hand goods dealers and scrapyards, which is give a narrative in terms of the legislative mandate which govern this area. We also have on the next slide the establishment of the second-hand goods forum, which has been in operation for a while, and they have specific functions as highlighted there to address non-compliance with the Second-Hand Goods Act, identifying and dismantling the market for stolen goods such as electronic equipment, vehicles, cellular phones and non-ferrous metals, and also then combating cable theft and other essential infrastructure related crime in terms of the Criminal Matter Amendment Act, by focusing on stamping out the illicit markets for goods obtained from essential infrastructure damage related crimes. There's also specific activities that were conducted within the court in terms of the second-hand goods dealers. You can see there in terms of awareness campaigns, there was 549 conducted, and in terms of operations conducted, there was 1,766 conducted throughout the province. Compliance inspections, you can see that the total in bold there, 18,708 is the total. 758 is the total of all the inspections that were conducted in the court in the different categories of second-hand good dealers that is in existence, namely antiques dealers, auctioneers, bookkeepers, panel beaters, recyclers, tire dealers, vehicle dealers, and the rest. I will not mention the total number of each, safe to say, as I indicated, over 18,000 inspections were conducted. Moving to the next slide, there was 184 cases opened. Registered premises that were closed down was 9. Unregistered premises closed down was 81. Fines issued in terms of the second-hand goods were 18, and warnings issued was 18 also. Arrests made 377, and for second-hand goods related and dealing in goods at unregistered second-hand goods premises, there was a total of 373 cases that were, or 373 arrests were made. Also then during these operations, there's confiscations at these second-hand goods dealers, and there's a number of items that have been confiscated as highlighted on the slide there. In terms of our detective or reactive approach, in terms of our detective environment, they also had 641 cases, of which 631 arrests were made in those cases. They still have 123 cases under investigation, and cases brought from other periods not finalized is 1,323. Second to last is in terms of the Honourable Chairperson and members was the request to provide information on the recovery of firearms within the province for the period under review. You can see that in terms of January, February and March. Total number of firearms recovered for that period was 983. The total number of firearms were handed in voluntary was 2,930, and in March there was a total of 898 firearms that were destroyed. And then lastly, in terms of schools and health facility, just to indicate that the UPhenyibheshu makes provision to address crime and violence through early interventions in terms of the pillar, and school safety programs, awareness campaigns are conducted at schools. There's a number of these aspects and projects that has been done as listed there. We have adopted COP programs, we have the Junior Commissioners program, dialogues between schools whereby learners are encouraged to share problems, solutions with peers relating to prevailing issues such as bullying, drugs, etc., school searches, and also then engagement of parents during parents' evenings. During the fourth quarter, those schools, the Botse Secondary School, Patabile Primary School, as well as the Palane Primary School were visited with a view of substance abuse as well as dangerous weapons during January of this year. In terms of the case management for the fourth quarter, we can see that burglaries at schools, we had 136 reported, of which 12 went to court. At attended burglaries, there were 1. At clinics, there were 10 burglaries reported, and at hospitals, there were 4, giving us a total of 151. 12 went to court, 80 is still under investigation, 85 has been closed is undetected. 11 is still pending in court, and no guilty findings as yet, and 1 has been withdrawn. And just lastly, the measures that has been implemented from the detective service perspective to ensure the successful investigation of these cases include the monitoring of the cases at station level, the visiting of crime scenes, especially by the criminal record and crime scene management to gather evidence, the profiling of suspects that has been arrested, make sure that all exhibits that were found at the scenes are dealt with in terms of our prescribed directives, and then lastly, all statements are obtained from witnesses immediately at the crime scene. With that, we submit, Honourable Chairperson and Honourable Members. Thank you.
Thank you. Let's get the last presentation. I'm sure it's not going to be that long. On the preparations for the 30th of June. Of course, we are not going to reveal all the intelligence operations that are underway, but just to give us a sense of comfort that the law enforcement is actually ready. I think the first step was done by the President on Sunday when he addressed the nation on the issues relating to the very same matter of illegal immigrants. So over to you.
Good morning, Honourable Chairperson, Honourable Members, the Honourable Premier, the Provincial Commissioner of Gauteng. I'm Brigadier Joseph, the Provincial Head of Visible Policing in Gauteng Province, and I've been asked to present this to the House. We know it's a very contentious issue at the moment. However, I believe that the presentation will tell us will brief us on our state of readiness for the specific operation. The presentation overview, I won't touch on that because of time. However, it will all be covered in this. And just for the House, the purpose of this presentation is to provide the Community Safety Portfolio Committee within the Gauteng Legislature with a summary on the multidisciplinary contingency plan to deal with any threats or criminal activity related to the 30th of June 2026 in respect of the illegal foreigners. We'll touch on the background because it's new. Our SAPS National Crime Combating Forum, NCCF Instruction 11 of 2021, which was drawn up immediately after the 2021 unrest and during it, operations emanating from the violence within Gauteng, KwaZulu-Natal and the Western Cape Province. Current threats looming within the Gauteng possesses a major threat of destabilization in the province, posing a serious impact on safety and security as previously experienced. These acts of violence on its own stretches law enforcement to its limits and therefore would be appropriate to be addressed simultaneously as to ensure stabilization prior to acts of violence within the sectors of foreign nationals and looting of foreign-owned businesses. The first part of the background will deal with the threats against foreign nationals. Previous attacks on foreign nationals were sporadic and opportunistic, support by communities within specific areas being more acceptable to acts of violence directed to the foreign nationals and to participation in these acts. Organizations such as the All Truck Drivers Foundation South Africa previously supported acts aimed at foreign nationals. These organizers oppose the employment of foreign drivers by transport companies in South Africa. Then we also saw Operation Dudula popping up. Operation Dudula in recent months embarked on numerous mobilization initiatives to gain renewed support and direct actions against foreign nationals. Operation Dudula targeted foreign nationals going to clinics and government hospitals, preventing them from receiving medical attention. Then under taxi operators, previously threatened to invade Sunnyside in order to deal with the Nigerian drug dealers, their attempts to carry out these attacks were prevented due to high visibility and early deployment. Another group that we now see is the March and March movement in South Africa, anti-immigration civic organisation that has threatened nationwide shutdown on the 30th of June 2028. The group is demanding that all undocumented foreign nationals vacate the country by the above-mentioned date. Their demands: organisers are demanding the immediate deportation of undocumented immigrants, a state of emergency regarding illegal immigration must be declared, and a freeze on all new refugee applications. What does the private sector do? Private sector targeting. The movement is pressuring major companies including McDonald's, Mr. Delivery, the Checker 6060, just to name a few, to disclose how many foreign nationals are in their employment. Government's stance: ministers from the Justice, Crime Prevention and Security, the JCPS cluster, met with the protest leaders to urge calm and adherence to the law, cautioning against inciting xenophobia. However, March and March walked out, claiming the government lacks a proper plan. Potential disruption: the June 30 deadline has raised concerns for national logistics and fleet operations. Groups such as All Truck Drivers Forum and Allied South Africa, ATDF-ASA, have indicated their intent to align with the action threatening the target major transport routes such as the N1, the N3, the N4 and N12 highways. If we look at that, it's just some flyers that have been collected just to show but a few, and these are circulating from all different organizations and lobby groups that are out there. So that is what we're dealing with, and this also helps us when collected to ensure that we know which areas are going to be targeted as well as who's involved with the mobilization. Measures implemented. So the following plans are in place to address anti-foreigner sentiment within Gauteng province. A provincial contingency plan with serial number 8 of 2026, which remains a secure document. The contingency plan for the prevention and violence and attacks of foreign nationals. This ran from 2026-04-26, and it runs up until 2027-03-31. Our provincial contingency plan, serial number 23 of 2026, which is a contingency plan for the possible national shutdown, which is the one we are dealing with now, and the state of readiness as explained here. By March, ATDF, ASA, and other civic organizations against foreign nationals, anti-foreigner sentiment from 2026-06-29 until 2026-07-01. And then the subject can still be reviewed and will obviously remain in place as intelligence is received. It will be mitigated, although there's a lot that's already been mitigated. Okay, the measures that we implement, early warnings are distributed to districts which develop contingency plans to mitigate the threat of the warnings, and districts will deploy from 2026-06-29 at 1800 hours for that specific shutdown for the 30th. Situation reports will begin from stations to district DOCC to the provincial POCC from 2026-06-29, 1800 hours on an hourly basis and be continuous until the operation is concluded. Should the shutdown not be enforced and there is no incidence of operations, within the directive from the Provincial Commissioner may conclude it on 2026-07-01. However, if not, we remain on the during phase up until. Should the shutdown escalate, the operation will become ongoing and the provincial operation contingency plan will be implemented. Stations, districts and provincial components have been directed to update and have active mobilization orders which must be readily available and immediately implemented should the need arise. Districts have appointed senior managers to coordinate district operations, and the station commander is responsible for the overall command of his specific station precinct. Stations will deploy accordingly to the threat and in their respective policing areas. The operation concept to prevent, combat any unlawful activities against illegal foreigners on the 30th of June, as was explained by Brigadier Bender in all of our steps, we're using the 5-pillar approach here. The first one will be intelligence gathering, which is taking place as we talk now and will be continuous. And then the pillar number 2 is the proactive approach, where we prevent anything from happening. Pillar 3 is the combat approach, which is your rapid response and hardcore policing. Pillar 4 is the reactive approach, the detection, the tracking, prosecutorial-led investigations, OCTA process, and case management. And then pillar 5, obviously, is our communication and liaison phase. That is just a picture of the pillars. So pillar 1, as I said, it's already started. Once we started getting the threats, it's in place and remains in place until the end. Information gathering, coordination and analysis by SIMO, district and provincial crime intelligence on specific threats. Coordinate and create association or linkage analysis at unit level for operational purposes. Increase the ground coverage on the identified hotspots and staging areas. infiltration and neutralization of identified instigators and syndicates, provision of actionable intelligence to the tactical teams for operationalization, recruitment of credible informers. Crime Intelligence Director for Priority Crime Investigation must immediately pursue all instigators, to identify common modus operandi, to identify possible repeat and group offenders, to ensure the coordination to POCC and link with the affected areas. Pillar 2, the proactive approach, high visibility, targeted and informed deployments of operational resources, crime prevention and high visibility at identified hotspots, intensify high visible policing operations within the immediate surroundings and hotspots, conducting high visibility vehicle and foot patrols at identified crime hotspots and all role players, conducting roadblocks and VCPs, operations at, once again, the identified hotspots, roadblocks and vehicle checkpoints also there, and continuous engagements with the community policing structures to assist with the information gathering and generate early warnings. Just to inform the House as well, there was a meeting that was held on Saturday with the policing board in Gauteng, led by Mr. TJ Masilela, on which this was also shared, and planning was also started from there and will continue throughout. Under the combat approach, which is the hardcore policing, we know this is during the operation, and should the threat arise or should it look like it's going to escalate, to conduct observations and waylays in all affected areas, conduct authorized persons and vehicle stop and search operations at identified crime hotspots, responding to all incidents in progress in order to apprehend offenders of crime, specialized tactical operation reaction capability, canine and mounted deployments at identified areas, intelligence-driven operations continuously, public order policing, visible policing, rapid response, and joint role players must focus on rapid response to all incidents, arresting suspects involved in these crimes. Ensure efficient deployment to mitigate any early warnings received. Pillar 4, which is the reactive part, which is also very important here, integrated crime scene management, that is, detectives and forensic capabilities, cordon off and protection of all crime scenes. Forensic services provide support at crime scenes in terms of processing, analyzing, and evaluation of collective evidence. They also provide evidence and DNA kits for investigations in the cases of murder. Effective docket management, continuous liaison with the prosecution, coordination of all exhibits, packaging and analysis and examination, and support of the operation. Continuous monitoring of all cases generated, ensuring docket flow within the stipulated timeframes. We continue with them. We'll conduct OCTA-driven project investigations. That'll be from DPCI. Establish investigation teams within the affected areas, so specialized investigation within that area. The criminals that are, or the destabilizers that are arrested during this phase, there will be teams that will be dealing with them. Involving the prosecutorial teams from the onset to ensure agreement on the approach and target selection. The DOCs and asset forfeiture, DPCI, FIC, and witness protection. A consolidated wanted suspect list is continuously updated and purified. Continuous consultation between investigation and prosecution from the NPA. Dedicated prosecutors allocated to the project. And the NPA evaluates all evidence and exhibits to determine successful prosecution. Then for our communication phase, we say joint public relations and marketing, media releases on successes, corporate internal communication, awareness through distribution and relevant printed pamphlets, immediately react to statements that have an intention to tarnish the police, and communication to the media of any newsworthy successes. Also continuous for that phase. This is the command structure for that. Obviously, all these operations will be led by the Provincial Commissioner of Gauteng, who is the overall commander for this, and then supported by the Deputy Provincial Commissioner for Policing, as well as the Deputy Provincial Commissioner for Crime Detection, our Provincial Head for Legal Services, and then our Provincial Head for Crime Intelligence, the Provincial Head, VISPOL, ORS, OCC, Rapid Response Services, CR and CSM, and the Provincial Head of Corporate Communication. And then coordination and collaboration continued there. Some of our external role players there, we have the Metropolitan Police Departments, Local Traffic Police, Gauteng Traffic Police, National Traffic Police, Department of Home Affairs, Border Management, Policing, Disaster Management, Emergency Medical Services, and the Department of Correctional Services. Sandrail is also on this with us for the blocking of the roads and the availability of specific vehicles that can assist us and access to their major routes and any CCTV coverage on those major routes. And then obviously, as the PC also alluded, Business Against Crime South Africa for the E2 project and the deployment of the security industry and their capability in conjunction with the South African Police Services. Our contingency plans in place to respond effectively to the risks. These risks have been identified, although it will be continuous as we move along. More of them will be identified. The first one is the disruption of traffic within Gauteng along major routes. Then here we say law enforcers will deal with each situation on its own merits and apply situational appropriateness to prevent the loss of lives. Then breaching of the perimeter of identified national key points, should that take place, we will use the National Key Points Act, as well as the people that are deployed there, we will deal with that. Blockading of the main routes and attacks on foreign truck drivers. This one is imminent, and we will also ensure on this one that the deployment of the LEA on all identified routes to prevent road closures and attacks. Possible attacks on law enforcement officials. POPs will form part of the operation and support all operational groups. Attacks and forcible release of suspects in transit. There we will also say deployment of the law enforcement officials to maintain our police visibility, and retaliation attacks on foreign nationals, deployment once again, damage to essential infrastructure and buildings where foreign nationals reside and around within that specific perimeter. Also, once again, that the deployment prior, before, during, and after. And then possible sporadic looting by opportunists. This one is also the deployment of SAPSP members when early warnings are received, and also in high visibility operations and high visibility deployments. We did pick up another one yesterday, and we will deal with it in the IGR meeting. Premier, that one is the displacement of the foreign nationals should something happen, like we've picked up in previous instances, for the other departments to ensure that we have a plan in place to ensure that once they are there, once they do come and seek refuge, that we can take care of that. And with that, I submit. Thank you.
Thanks, PC and the team. I think that was a marathon of reports, which are quite essential in any case in terms of us making a broader assessment of the progress that we are making as a province in fighting crime. We've been joined by Member Chilwane, who's also part of the committee, and the CEO of Guns Free South Africa, who's part of our major stakeholder in our engagements and in our cooperation, in our activities. He'll always be part of it. You are welcome, Doctor. So I'm going to allow members of the committee to make their brief, whilst important, observations and comments and questions in their input, and then we'll allow the PC to respond with the team, and then we'll proceed with the meeting. So I'll start with Member Moody, and then we'll proceed to Member Bunen and then Member Chilwane. Let's just be conscious of the time, so our inputs must be quite brief and short. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Let me firstly just applaud the police for the reduction in, more specifically, the serious crime in Gauteng, which unfortunately still remains the capital province of crime in South Africa. Just a few questions. Truck hijackings for me is indeed a very worrying aspect, because it disrupts the economy per se. And if you have 237 cases in 3 months, what plans are being put in place, not just by SAPS, but by the role players themselves, which is your security companies, which and your insurance companies, which should be working in tandem with each other, because most of these trucks and cargo is being insured against, I'm sure. But what action is being taken in that regard? And then also of importance is the cash in transit hijackings instances. That's almost 5 per month over the 3 months, 15. And what is being put in place by the role players to ensure that this type of crime is being addressed both by law enforcement as well as private security individuals. I'm glad that the figure with regard to murders when it relates to firearms, it is not seen as 488, which is too many people in any case. Even one life being taken is of importance, and one life too many. But it does not mean that it's 488 firearms used in the commitment of that crime. And similarly with knives, which is 102. Alex remains the number one station, not just in the province, but also in the country for hijackings, is at London Road and Marlborough Road access, because I can't believe that it is just Alex itself where the hijackings are actually happening. It's happening in the precinct, and is it on those peripheries and perhaps also the N3? What is being done to counter and address this particular crime? And then what is the difference between extortion, that is a human, what do you call it, kidnappings? What's the difference between extortion and ransom? Please just explain that to me. With illegal mining, is the involvement of the army really assisting in addressing this particular crime? And is it more disruptive in terms of the focus, or is the focus actually to try and eradicate this type of crime? Because it's not just about the illicit and illegal mining per se, it's also the threat of life and property of residents living around the area. I live on the West Rand, for example, very close, within a kilometer of that mining belt. And we hear the gunshots, etc., practically every night, and our SAPS local are unable to deal with it. It also puts them at risk together with the security. And the station itself cannot handle it. There's disruptive operations being done during the course of the day, which we appreciate practically daily basis, but it does not deal with the actual threat to us as residents in the area. And then also when it comes to the issue relating to the issue of gangs, we have the army deployed to assist. I didn't see any mention of what support is being given by the army and their involvement, and what is the impact of having them there. I had seen some operations in the Westbury and Eldorado Park areas, and all I've seen is soldiers together with police showing visibility and force, but no actual impact in the sense that you cordon off an area, you do foot patrols into the area, you search every car that comes through so that you can show not just a show of force, but an experience of a show of force. In other words, the stop and searches, etc. Because police and patrolling through an area and driving past in the cars means nothing. You have the army walking through the flats and so on, showing some force, but there's nothing tangible being happening as far as I'm concerned. And please just inform me, because I may be wrong. I'm glad that when you spoke to the issue with regard to preparedness for the 30th of this month, that there was some mention made, because I jotted it down here, is what intelligence gathering is being conducted on foreign nationals in terms of their plans for retaliation and to protect themselves against a possible onslaught. Because my fear is this, that those foreign nationals are even better armed than you as the police and our army. it puts our state at risk. It is not just a matter of disruption and stopping. The real threat, and I'm sure you're aware of it, is that our sovereignty could be at stake here. It could be that spark that causes it, because you don't know how many foreign nationals we have in Gauteng and in the country, and how well prepared and armed they may be. So maybe just to just console us in that regard as to what, what have you done to ensure that from the foreign nationals' perspective, their reaction will be, and how do we mitigate against that? Thank you, Chair.
Member Kunene.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I see the number of drug-related crimes that have been reported have increased from 11,000 to 12,000 during the fourth quarter. And this is a question that I normally ask when I visit police stations, and I think I know the answer, but I'll ask it anyway. That I know that you are not separating between the users or for possession, because I want to assume that you are some of those that you arrest for possession could just be users and the dealers, because your reports don't separate between the dealers and the users. So you may find that the 12,000 that you have arrested, the majority of them are just young boys and girls who are using drugs for recreation and for whatever reason. So my argument is that this distorts the statistics, because it gives an impression that no, amaphoyisa ayasebenza, which we're not disputing that, but when you check the numbers, because I think there's general agreement that drugs are a problem in our communities. So I want to check if you have, maybe at the level you do have that separation in terms of the statistics. I know that also subs, it's not necessarily your responsibility, but you do report about the amount of the numbers of cases that result in successful prosecutions in terms of the drugs. So I wanted to check have you done analysis, just a study to check how many of those that you arrest for drug sales or for drug trade, or that are finally successfully convicted, and do you have statistics of the common drugs that are used mostly in Gauteng, that you would say this becomes to be the most prevalent drugs? One of the issues that we have discovered during our school visits, I mean, we did 22 schools this year, and one of the, in majority of schools, the SGBs, those who are there, and the learners who have been part of our meetings, including the principals, there is an issue of people who sell drugs to learners, and in some cases they even know their names. But then they would raise that, these people are arrested, but then some days they are also released. And one of the biggest problems is that we have also got to observe is that it just takes, first the argument is made that NPA will only enroll cases where there's an expert report, which is supposed to come from the laboratory. But the laboratories take far too long for these reports to come back, which then mean that if a person is arrested for drug possession or for drug dealing, they may get released because the NPA would have not enrolled the case because of the time, because of a lack of expert report. So I just want to check from your side, have you done analysis, how long does it take for these drug analysis reports or to come back from the laboratories? Because from different police stations, you get reports, different reports. Others will say 6 months, others will say 1 year, others. So I want to check if at the provincial level, is it a problem that you have identified, that you understand its extent, and you also know how long it takes and what are the interventions if these laboratories are not your control, if it's a national control, what has been done to ensure that the interventions to reduce the time that these tests take place. Lastly, Chair, I want to raise an issue of boundaries, and I'm going to use the Everton, Didier, Spooking, Orange Farm as an example. The demarcations there don't really make sense. Let me just make one example. Orange Farm is given a responsibility over N1. Maybe we have changed it, but the last time I checked was still like that. When Everton Police Station is effectively a walking distance away from N1, it's also closer to the exit, the Everton exit, that Ranfontein exit. While Orange Farm, if they must reach the N1, they must either go through Grasmere, Toll Plaza, or go to the Everton. So it doesn't make sense. If my information is not Vaterdal, for example, which is closer to Spooking Police Station, it's under Didier. So when you're in Didier, you have to pass a Tsepong, which is under Everton, then you go to Vaterdal. It doesn't make sense because Vaterdal and Tsepong are in basically the same area. It would make sense that Tsepong, instead of being under Everton, is under Didier. It would make sense that Vaterdal, instead of being under Didier, is under Spooking. So I'm just raising these issues because I think that, so I want to check, are you in a process, and how soon are you going to conclude, if the process is still ongoing or if it's still concluded? Have you fixed those challenges? I'm talking about the entire province, and I'm just using the Spooking Everton as an example. I could use the same example with Jablani and Moroka Police Station, which also share the same, Jablani, Moroka, and Proti Police Stations. They basically share the boundaries in terms of the areas of policing. So I want to check if there's any plans to really realign the police stations to make sense practically, because the current demarcations for me, they don't make sense. Thank you, Chair.
Member Chilone.
Thanks, Chair. I know I just arrived, Chair. But there are a few issues that I think I would have picked up. Firstly, to agree with Member Kunene, this issue of boundaries is quite tedious for citizens to report. You find that the incident is here, 1 kilometer away, there's a police station you can't even go to. You are referred elsewhere, where you have to catch a taxi to go and report. So it's something that I think it needs to be looked at closely and urgently and be resolved, because it does affect even the stats that we are reporting. You find that people don't report because they can't even get to where they're supposed to, the nearest police station, that they should report some of this, the incidences. Chair, I'll touch from where I arrived. The first one is around the gang unit, anti-gang unit. There's a greater focus on colored communities, which is fine. But we know very well that there's a spike, a great spike in the black, historically black townships. And I think this unit needs to expand now and really focus there. Because if you look at some of the cases, I'm sure your own statistics within your own metrics that you would have done, you would have seen that as much as there is a focus, this unit in our historically colored communities, but there's a lot more numbers that are coming up that are drug-related in historically black townships. So there should be a move towards that particular unit to focus there. I'm raising this because I think a week ago, is it a week or 2 weeks ago, when Orange Farm, we had a public meeting there. And every single member of the public that was speaking about drugs that are affecting the drugs. 80% of the speakers. And the station commissioner, command, station command. I'm here to learn the terms. Brigadier, Lieutenant General, I will learn them very soon. Yes, we'll say that we don't have, and there's a need. And if you look at these gangs, they're quite more prevalent now in our townships. They're affecting schools. Not far from here, Davidton, there's a spike of gangs in those communities affecting schools. And obviously schools, because it's where they recruit. So the expansion in that particular, those communities is quite important. There was one on vigilantism. I just needed clarity here. That are these sporadic community convergence? Or is it, because I know that in some of the townships there's this organized community safety groups. Like here in Gauteng, they've got what we call neighborhood watch. Okay. Tata Zong, yes, Tata Zong, as an example. So within your matrix of vigilantes, is it the same people, or is it just communities being upset and knowing something that an incident that has taken place, and they feel that law enforcement is not doing its job thoroughly, or they feel they don't have confidence, and then they've taken law into their own hands? Which are these ones? Because I can see some there's arrests, some there's no arrests, but incidents are higher. You've got 4 cases, 3 cases of murder, but there's no one that has ever been arrested. And what I know that also in some of these vigilante groups, there are those that are, to a large extent, practicing extortion. Because we've picked up, I mean, some community members, they speak, say, give us whatever amount of money. This is what we call to safeguard the community for petrol, this neighborhood watches. How close are we, or yourselves, with these groups to monitor that even if they do have a principle, it's a principled behavior where community works with the police, it's okay. Nobody's against that. But the minute there's something that is expected to be paid by members of the community, then that becomes something else. It's bordering on protection fee. So it's quite important that at least I get clarity there. Burglaries, especially for against schools, clinics, hospitals. Schools, one, I know that in my previous deployment was a big concern. And to see a report that says 74 cases were just left, it's a big problem. Because when there's a burglary, I mean, there's no way that they can't be. When you say undetected, actually the word you used here was undetected. So you left it. And then you said there's a figure there as well that you speak around those the way of pursuing these cases. This undetected means that, for me, it says you are saying that we left the case. There's nothing we can do. We don't have witnesses. We don't know anything. We don't have enough to go by. So we've left this particular burglaries. It's a big concern for me, and considering that the losses are quite high. On immigration, the March 30, just here it's just one question or two maybe. These marches that are always, we're always seeing on TV, are they applied for? Or it's just, because we know that once you embark on a march, there's a process of application. Is it the section 205 or something? Yeah, so you apply that you're going to embark on this particular march, and this is the number of people you're expecting, etc., etc. Or is this just a sporadic? Amapinga just arrive with the nobkiris then, and then they start working. Is it what we're experiencing? Or is it there's law that is being followed, there's compliance from these marchers? And if not, what are you doing about it? Are you just letting them march as long as no property is damaged, no one is harmed, it's okay? Is that the approach? And that goes also for the 30th of June. Is it the same? Is there any application? Do we know? Do we know which routes they'll be, where they'll be marching at? Or we just anticipate that they will be here, or we are relying on intelligence to tell us that, to brief that this is where they're going to be, and this is where they're planning to start, and this is planning to end their march. Is there any compliance, basically within my question, that is being done by these marchers, or on its own, it's just people just doing what they want? It's lawlessness, actually. I'm concluding, Chair.
Lastly. Lastly.
Oh, yeah. Lastly, it's around, okay, the SNDF member Moody covered it nicely. There seems to be I would say, a node, you know, a square meter area where you can see that this is where is a crime zone. Kempton Park, Thembisa, Ivory Park, Alexander. You can circle it, you can do a circle around a radius. And if you look at the top 20, in the top 20 statistics, this area or their police stations are always around the top 5. So you can see that here, maybe there's something that you need to do differently, because you can see that majority of the problem is here. Whether it's carjacking, whether it's sexual offenses, whether it's murder, whether it's property-related crime, it's in this particular area. And I don't know that perhaps maybe as law enforcement we have identified this and come up with some strategic, comprehensive operation to deal, because you can see this is where the problems are, including vigilantism, including kidnapping. I see Kempton Park has gone up in this kidnapping. And furthermore, even with that kidnapping, I added some footnotes here, speaking about also the metrics for it. For instance, in future, Chair, maybe they should at least give us information around, not just a figure. The nationalities, is it the South Africans who are kidnapped more than foreign nationals? Was it foreign nationals? It also helps the gender, the age bracket. I think this is information that the public would really, really use in trying to protect their loved ones. That this is generally the targeted age group, the gender that's been targeted, the nationality, and these are the areas that it's taking place at. No, I'll stop there, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you, honorable members. I think basically those are the comments and some questions. One will just want to raise a few, just observations, and maybe some of them will come out as concern. I think that I've got a bit of concern about the spiking in West Rand of certain crimes. And why I've got a concern because usually with West Rand, we're almost dealing with issues relating to illegal mining. But I see that Kagiso is also featuring in some of the crime categories that have been reported on. And linked to this, maybe it's going to be also linked to the next session that we're going to get on the reports from metros. You know, metros are not supposed to be really struggling with crime prevention mainly, or maybe even crime fighting, but they do have metro police, you know, and you know, the three of them, you know, but we seem to have a problem with some of the crime categories in the metros vis-a-vis districts. You know, we know districts by nature, they are not maybe fully or highly populated in terms of numbers, but there must be a way to mitigate. Why do we have metros somehow having high numbers, whilst we have districts which don't really have what we call resources to deal with some of the things? You know, I know most of the three of them have got some capacity to, in a real sense, work in coordination with SAPS to deal with some of the categories of crime. The issue relating to farms, you know, maybe we need to get more information on the farm killings. You know, it is a big concern. You know that it's an international matter, this one, where, you know, there is an alleged situation around farm killings in relation to other races, you know, particularly the Afrikaners. So we need to be very clear on how we report to the farm killings and not be just indicated that we had one, but we just need to have more information on it. Dobsonville is a big concern in relation to Bramfisher also. You know, I think the issue of demarcations and categories on how we categorize precincts, you know, maybe it's something that, as raised by Member Kunen and Member Chilwan, it's something that we need to revisit somehow. When we visited Pretoria West, there was a big concern, you know, and I saw even in the act that I went through now, is that the police have got that mandate to give licenses to scrap yards or second-hand shops. And in our visit in Pretoria West, it was indicated that there's not really much of a thought process that is put. That's why there's a proliferation of a lot of second-hand good shops around Pretoria West and scrapyard. So I think it's a concern that we need to raise, you know, that it's seemingly that there's not much thought process and an ability to also monitor the scrapyards. You know, in the media we see some of them where there is a government or infrastructure. I think there's one that was raided recently where we found a lot of traffic lights, you know, in that. And it seems that we are the one that give them the opportunity to trade in this, and it's something that is of concern. The other aspect is on the issue that is raised by Member Chilwan on the gangsters. You know, we do see, not that we do, I think in the past 2 years we have seen some increase in the township gangsterism, you know, and in particular relating to schools, learners. In Sidibeng, we know that there was an element of initiation school and recruitment and so on, which I think in Orange Farm and Sebokeng, it's one of the bigger concerns that we'll have to. But maybe it's sometimes that we need to now start focusing on the townships. In Legaye, I think there was a Legaye and Carltonville, the two learners who were fatally wounded by step wounds in this indication of gangsterism. And so on. And maybe the last point that we need to make, you know, is the issue relating to Recha Park. I think we've been to Recha Park twice. We have been there on our own as a committee, and we also were there when the acting minister actually started. There was an incident there, and there was a concern about the functioning of the police station. You know, and the concern that sometimes it closes down and so on during the night when there's load shedding. But it's seemingly it's coming up very sharply, the issue of Reicha Park. Lastly, the issue of immigration march and immigration. I think it should be clear that we note that there are serious challenges in terms of the socio-economic of our citizens. We should not in any way dismiss the concerns of our citizens. But I think of essence as a state, we need to be able to be active in dealing with this matter. You know, when we see the March and all the other groups coming up, it's indication that we are not doing enough as a state. And it's something that we need to reflect on. My major concern, I think it's a concern of, it's not about whether they are foreigners or not. It's their legal status and their status of being identifiable as in the country, you know. So we need to somehow see how we come up with it. There is an element that there might be a potential of destabilization of the country. I think as Member Moody have said, we need to be ready for that. But I think as a committee, it becomes important that we now start to be engaged somehow in public participation processes and engaging citizens around these issues in a real sense to even capture the actual issues so that we don't even speculate on many of them. I know there's a lot of research that has been done, but we need to be able to have an accurate narrative on the issues and concerns that are raised by our citizens in relation to illegal foreign nationals. But I think let me allow you to respond to all the concerns. You might not respond to all of them today, but we'll follow up in most of the discussions with yourselves. And some of them are issues that we are going to enroll in our processes of engagement with yourselves. Over to you, PC. As we are walking there, maybe there's one point on the issue of, I see, the issue of community policing and all that. It's an important aspect. I think the minister has raised it, and I think there's a national process. But I've always said that Gauteng, most of the things, if they are done and they are successful in Gauteng, basically they can be successful anywhere else in the country. And it seems acceptable that in other areas there are neighborhood watches which we work with. In other areas, particularly in townships, when there are NPOs that function within that space, they become a problem and police don't really work with them. But in other, maybe in suburbs, it's easy. It's something that we need to look at with the community safety department on how we formalize, I'll continuously say it, how we formalize community policing and make sure that it's structured and it's able to get all the community members involved in preventing crime and fighting crime. Police alone won't be able to do it, but we need to be able to coordinate this effort. Thanks, PC.
Thank you, Honorable Chair, honorable members, for the questions we got. We'll try and give answers to the best of my ability. And where we're unable to give maybe satisfactory, will be in a position to can provide, as the Honorable Chair have indicated to that. Let me start with Honorable Moody. The truck hijacking is a worrying factor. One will say it is, of course, the worrying factor of which is shared by most of the community within the province. The hijacking and truck hijacking for the cars, it is a concern. I must just indicate that within the province, we do have the strategy in terms of dealing with the hijackings and truck hijackings. The strategy is really integrated strategy within the province. Through the Prov joints, we, year in, year out, we review the provincial joint instruction, which clearly reflect or indicate how do we deal with the hijacking amongst the strategy. For example, there is a specific routes where we know prominently, or those routes that are affected in terms of the hijacking. Those routes, there are static vehicles, though in some other instances the static vehicle is not maybe throughout the day, throughout specific times on which this deployment is taking place. I'll give an example. The grandstand of ramp, is the chief still here? The chief of Metropolis in Johannesburg, Chief Jaka, knows that in that grandstand on ramp, you'll see a vehicle or vehicles which are put in that space. Is one of the strategies in terms of preventing the hijackings of the vehicles. We know for the fact that in Gauteng, the E2 project, which I've indicated during my brief or opening remarks, that the E2 project is eyes and ears, which the National Commission have since signed a memorandum of agreement with Business Against Crime South Africa, which incorporate the security industry. Within the province, we're having over 217 security personnel which assist in terms of the routes within the province. The other thing is that we're having an anti-hijacking task team within the province, but except that, we have in the technical response team, which is known as Mabereta. We have subdivided that team into two to cover Gauteng North, Gauteng South, as part of prevention of the cash in transit heist, as we know. I can just reflect the latest, I will say, success or latest prevention of those car hijacking or truck hijacking. Last night, somewhere there, 5, 6 o'clock during the evening, there is a courier vehicle which was hijacked along Jimmystein, went to Recher Park. They engaged the police in that process, or they engaged the TRT or Mabereta. And 2 of the suspects managed to escape, but 2 were fatally wounded. So this is some of the strategy which we employ in terms of preventing or dealing with the hijackings, as well as the cash in transit heist. Cash in transit heist, last week, I cannot do recollection the exact date, in Silverton, We had the RTMC, which is a road traffic management cooperation with our highway patrol in the province. Yeah, by the way, the highway patrol, the flying squad, they're taking care of our routes. We know we are affected in terms of the ATDF, which is All Truck Drivers Forum. We daily, in terms of those units, there are vehicles which are monitoring those routes, also for prevention of truck hijacking, prevention of car hijackings, and we make sure that they are there for 24/7 within those specific areas. But maybe to mention, so that we must not taint the relationship we're having in terms of dealing with the car hijackings, also dealing with this foreign national sentiment in terms of saying that people who are owning the trucks, they're employing foreign nationals. And within the factories, they're employing foreign nationals. With the ATDF, we collaborate with the Department of Labor, Home Affairs, and we move, for example, in Alberton, ATDF SA, they are on the observer status. We'll go there into these factories, we check with them. We're mitigating, again, this issue of closing your N3 highways or N12 or N17. Week in, week out, we work closely with them. For example, Mondays, Tuesday, and some other days. We also deal with this issue within the highways, but they are taking the observer status. Coming back to the issue of Silverton. Silverton last week with the RTMC, with the highway patrol, with our crime intelligence, we are on set. Highly probable these people, they were supposed to do a lot of damage in terms of bombing the cars. We went, I would say it's a safe house. In that safe house, we recovered the ML, which was a hijack in Valeria, the Ford Fortuna, which was also hijacked in the Hart PSP Dam. Somewhere there on the 30th, we had attempted cash in transit heist, of which this Fortuna was seen on a video committing some crimes. In that house, we found the explosive charger, the ready-made explosives, not one, which they could use in the execution of doing the cash in transit heist. In so many instances, we got engaged with these cash in transit heist. We managed to unset them. And in most cases, we have fatalities, like these ones for yesterday for robbery of the courier motor vehicles. Alexander, hijackings, I should think I've covered the issues of hijackings. Alexander, London Road, or your Marlborough. Marlborough is adjacent to where I've indicated to say, for example, with Johannesburg Metropolis, we're having a static point there in terms of the Prof joint instruction, but not forgetting Smith Street. You can go to Pretoria on your Rachel off-ramp. There's so many of those areas of which we collaborating with the law enforcement agency. Well, differentiation of the extortion and ransom, to a certain extent, the honorable member, Honorable Chilwani, I think he touched on it in terms of the extortion, because we know in most cases these things happen on the construction side practically, where you'll find that there's an indication that this tender worth for so much, and then we are in charge for this place, we want 30%. In that manner, one will say people are obtaining money or property. They coerce, force, or threatens. Meanwhile, the ransom normally it happens when we're having this kidnapping, where upon a specific amount is requested. I think that presentation by Brigadier Bender made a reflection there in terms of the ransom monies of which people have requested. I think it was 430 US dollars for the 9-year-old who was kidnapped for 58 days, 9-year-old girl kidnapped for 58 days. We immediately on that particular day, we managed to be in a position to can really make a follow-up through our intelligence and recover the car, recover AK-47 with quite a number of ammunitions. We ultimately arrested 4 people, and that process culminated at the end of the day where this 9-year-old girl, a Chinese girl, was released. But subsequently, I think is it last month we had an 11-year-old Chinese girl again kidnapped through the collaboration of the E2 project, you know, your eyes and ears, the fidelity security industry with our crime intelligence. We managed to rescue the victim. I think it was Monday last week by 4 o'clock in the morning with our national anti-kidnapping team. The South African National Defence Force Operation Prosper, now also named as Karabo. I will say we are having really some impact within the community, but we have to take note that dealing with illegal mining, there is the question of disruptives. In this case, with the army, we're dealing with the illegal mining, we're doing disruptives. When you have to go deeper, there is the question of dealing with illegal mining in terms of the value chain, of which the DPCI, the Hawks, they deal with this in terms of level 3 to 5, of which the presentation have clearly made a reflection in here. I think in terms of the issue of the state forfeiture, the orders which the DPCI they ended up securing. During that presentation, it was clear. There's one of which it is in Santen. It is the assets where we managed to get that for 43 million. During the presentation, it was clearly reflected the total of 59 million in terms of that state forfeiture. I would say we are making a considerable impact within the community. On the 26th, within almost still that area, Honorable Member, where you stay, almost still next to there in Florida, we managed to recover 10 firearms. 2 were rifles, 4 were a revolver, and 4 were pistols. We have seen this operation through our crime intelligence led. In Cleveland, Jumpers Informal Settlement, we have seen ourselves recovering 1,000 live ammunition of AK-47. The worrying factor was that we did not get the rifle as such. We also have made considerable recoveries in Primrose with that operation. In Primrose, we have seen ourselves getting 2 pistols, getting 57 AK-47 ammunition, over 400, I think it's 489 ammunitions. But I must indicate on the 28th of May in Cleveland, we managed to arrest 4 individuals with with 1 rifle AK-47 and 2 pistol Glocks, with quite a number of ammunitions. So we are making considerable effort in terms of that, though one must concede that it is still a challenge in terms of those illegal mining or the illegal mining activities within those areas which are affected. The other thing is that we have to take note that as and when we work as law enforcement agency, we're having quite a high collaborations within the province. I must indicate in terms of the data which we're having in terms of community policing forum, we're having more than 9,000 community in blue, of which is subdivided within this district. The community in blue, they are well structured to such extent that as and when we work, we also work with the community. Some of the information emanates from them where we are getting assistance. And I should think I've already indicated in terms of the security industry to say we're having over 217,000 of the security industry. The other issue is the issue of, I think one of the honorable member, maybe the chairperson have made a reflection of Gauteng traffic wardens. We're having over 8,000, of which that is assisting. You have to take note that we know for the fact that at the end of the day, we must work for the reduction. We must work for the crimes to go down. But the moment you're having Gauteng traffic warden, you're having your metro police, you're having the police in a specific area which is affected by the crime. That presence really is making a sense of the communities they are and they feel safe in terms of the presence of that deployment. But we also take note that there has to be some typical type of how do we consistently maintain that so that the presence of the law enforcement agency has to be felt. The Honorable Kunene, numbers of drugs and dealing of drugs, the final successes. I would say we are having really successes which we can provide in terms of the drugs possession as well as dealing. The prevalent of these drugs, what we get, I'll say it's crystal meth, cocaine, because they range in different ranges. In some other places, we have the drug bust, this drug bust, though recently, you know now, within the Madlanga Commission, though that one, the consignment was coming from Durban. We have the drug bust, of which you'll find that it is two drugs, maybe in a form of cocaine, maybe in a form of crystal, because these drugs, they range. There are the production of that machine. You'll find that it's having the stamp, it's having a boss, it's having a star, and so on and so forth. I must just indicate that our crime intelligence, they are really hard at work with Ortia or Artambo. For example, on the 23rd of May, we had a cat. That cat, it was 40 kg worth 240,000, which was distant to Frankfurt. We had quite a number of busts within the Ortia where the individuals got arrested, except these other busts which we have, I can recall of Bracken Downs, I can recall of in Douglasdale, I can recall of Erasmia, the big drug bust. So we are in there, but it is a problem, these drugs. Even if you have a very big drug bust, this is still continuing. We are working towards to ensure that it has to come to a stop, but it is a problem because it's killing our community, because these drugs are sold or they get sold to our community. Didier Everton, maybe let me just indicate that in terms of the demarcation, because I heard this came also from Honorable Chilwan. As the South African Police Service, we are applying the scientific method. When we deal with the demarcation or the police boundaries, we sanction a feasibility study, and that study will come out in terms of taking into consideration the community, taking into consideration the traveling distance, taking into consideration other amenities or facilities which is there. But what is most important, we are considering also the municipal boundaries. It's not a question of saying that maybe somebody come and dictates in terms of saying these boundaries. The other thing is that we, though sometimes the police, they give some sort of, what would I say, challenges when the community goes to the police station. The expectation or what has to happen is that any community member who gets into the police station to report a case, that community member must be helped. Because sometimes it's practical impossible to go to that specific police station. You can get robbed. Maybe you are rushing into the airport, your cell phone is taken, you're going to Cape Town, you're not going to come back.
Right, ake sikubingelele sikwamukele igama lami ngingumfanelo UPhenyibheshu ngingowakwaDzanibe isibongo njengalokho ke sikhona cishe ke uyabona nawe kwenzeka lapha ke ngaphakathi sisakaza ke bukhoma sise Radisson Hotel Kempton Park noma ke OR Tambo ke mawukuthi ke mhlambe ke ubiza ngaleyo ndlela into eyenzekayo njengamanje indawo le esideclarewe njengendawo ke okuyeshamthetho sikahulumeni wesifundazwe saseGauteng into eyenzakalayo la ukuthi ke ikomiti leli libhekele zokuphepha kusoke isifundazwe saseGauteng kwishamthetho the Gauteng Provincial Legislator sihlezi lapha njengalokho ke sizobheka the fourth quarter uma ngabe ke sibheka ikakhulukazi ke ubugebengu obenzekayo kulesi sifundazwe saseGauteng ukhomishana ke wamaphoyisa esifundazweni saseGauteng umhlonishwa uLieutenant General Mthombeni ukhona ke uyena ke vele owethule lapha ke ehambisana ke noza kwabo ikakhulukazi ke lapha ke ukuchaza ukuthi ngabe ke ubugebengu buhamba kanjani nakuba ke mangabe ke sibheka ke ngokwembiko yabo nokwereport kuyabonakala ukuthi ke ubugebengu buyehla kodwa nakuba kwehla ke ubugebengu kodwa ke mawubheka ke indawo ezifana nako Ivory Park ubheke ke neziteshi ke ezifana nako Thembisa kubonakala ke nokho ke umehluko ungengako ngoba nje uzobuka lapha ya estation ke samaphoyisa saseThembisa siwu number 1 esifundazweni ke saseGauteng siphinde sibe u number 8 the whole South Africa uma ngabe ke sibheka ke amacala lawa ke abizwa ukuthi ke contact crime ungaba mhlambe ke abantu kabasuke behlaselwa kuningi nje kusuke ke kwenzeka isiwu number 1 esifundazweni saseGauteng okusho ukuthi ke ubugebengu obuningi benzeka ke endaweni yaseThembisa uphinde ke futhi ke ubheke isiteshi ke samaphoyisa sase Ivory Park sona ke siwu number 2 esifundazweni saseGauteng ngobugebengu obenzekayo ngokwama contact crimes bese ke sibe u number 11 the entire South Africa ubugebengu ke bubi kakhulu eThembisa nase Ivory Park ngokwale zibalo esitholayo la ibhamu ke zisetshenziswa kakhulu esifundazweni saseGauteng immese kuningi ke nje ke nokunye okwenzekayo kanti ke uma ngabe ke sibheka uma ngabe sibheka ke igameko zokubulawa kwabantu kuyavela ke lapha ukuthi ke isiteshi ke samaphoyisa eIvory Park sona ke esifundazweni saseGauteng silapha yana ke ku number 3 bese kuthi ke kuma top 40 stations siwu number 18 ngokubulawa kwabantu lapha ezweni ke la seningizimu Afrika ukukhomba ngempela ke ukuthi uma ngabe ke umuntu ophila endaweni yase Ivory Park ubugebengu ufanele ke uqaphele kakhulu ngoba ubugebengu budla lubi kuleyo ndawo kanjalo ke nakhona endaweni yaseThembisa ngoba mawubheka lezi ziteshi ke ezimbili isiteshi samaphoyisa ke saseThembisa kubikwa kakhulu nokho ke igameko zabantu abasuke ke belinyazwa behlaselwa bese uthi ke Ivory Park siyayibona ke ivela ku top 5 futhi eziteshini ke namacala asuke evuliwe wokubulawa kwabantu ziningi ke futhi nezinto ke esingabalula ezenzeka eIvory Park singabala noko ama car hijackings ezinye zezinto esizibukayo evela kanti ke endaweni zako Kempton Park uzokhumbula ukuthi ke ukuhijackwa ke noma ukudunwa kwamaloli ama truck phecelezi ke ziyavela ke iziteshi nalawo ke macala ukuthi ke asuke ebikwa lawo kodwa ke ngaphekwa konke lokho amaphoyisa singaqinisekisa ukuthi ke ayayenza ke imizamo yokuqinisekisa ukuthi ke kulwisana ke nabo lobugebengu ngoba uma ngabe ke sibuka futhi ke ngokwamacala lawa ke athinta ke i-kidnapping okusuke ke abantu mhlambe betagethwa bese emotweni ngenhloso mhlambe kwesinye isikhathi yokuzama ke ukuthola ke imali phecelezi kama ransom kuyavela ukuthi ke lawo macala kayakhuphuka kodwa ke amaphoyisa nawo ke they are making strides ukwenza sure ukuthi ke nokho ngabe yonke into ihamba kahle angikuboluleke nami ukuthi ke nami ngingumfanelo uPhenyibheshu kaDzanibe angihambi ngedwa ukhona ke uAssisipo Fiklen ukuyena ke usibambele ke le camera la ngikhona kanti ke la ngikhona ila sinoza kwethu khona okufaka phakathi ke laba ke be-national television abahlukahlukene ngibonile i-TV SABC Newsroom Africa simela ngoba silindele ukuthi ke kube ke nesithangami ke sabe indaba ozokwazi ukuthi ngokuhamba kwesikhathi wena ke sikuthathe sikubeke ungamangali ke uma ubona nomuzwa imibuzo isiqhamuka ke kwabanye uzakwethu ngoba la sikhona sizoqinisekisa ekuthenini ke nokho ngabe izinto zihamba kanjani njengalokho ke ukhomishana wamaphoyisa ke kulesi sifundazwe saseGauteng uLieutenant General Mthombeni engaphakathi ke esaphendula kwikomiti lesishamthetho esifundazweni saseGauteng, the portfolio committee on community safety eliholwa ke uyena ke honorable Bandile Masuku njengosihlalo baphendula ke imibuzo ke bethathe ke futhi nemibuzo bebhekeleke ekuthenini izinto ke ngabe ihamba kanjani ngobugebengu. Ubonile ke futhi endaweni ke yaseThembisa lapha Ivory Park namuhla ke ekseni kube nesigameko sokuqhinyiswa ke komshini ke ophatha ke imali kwase kulimala ke owesifazane owumuntu kosomabhizinisi nokho ke osuke eyidayisela lapha yana ke ngaphandle. Isigameko lesishaqisa abantu abaningi njengalokhu ke ethole ukudubuleka ngokuzwa ke nemibiko esiyitholayo kuvela ukuthi ke umuntu ke obehamba evukela ukuthi akwazi ukuthola isitoko azosidayisa uma ngabe kuba namhlanje. Siboneke esinye isigameko futhi endaweni yalapha yayiWinnie Mandela bude buduze nenxanxathela yezitolo ebizwa ngokuthi ke iPhumlani Mall. Ubonile ke lapha emgaqweni uR562 kuba nokudubula obekukhona okwenze abantu abaningi ke bathola ukushaqeka labo abebeya ke ngaseyindaweni zokusebenza. Isigameko lesesishiye ke umshayeli ethole ke ukulimala nokho ke nakuba ke iloli leli layisha ke ugwayi lingazange lithathwe kepha ke ugwayi obungaphakathi wona uthathiwe. Izona indaba nazo ke ezinye zazo esingakwazi ukuthi siqinisekise njengalokho ke nathi ke sila kusho ukuthi ke ukusuka manje sizokwazi ukuthi ke sibuyele ke ngaphakathi siyozwa ukuthi ke iqhubeka kanjani isitting ekhona ke ye community safety yasesifundazweni saseGauteng eholwa yona ke iGauteng Provincial Legislature. Uma sibuya ngaphakathi sizobe sesiba ngapha siqinisekisa ukuthi ke ngabe ke izinto ke zihamba kanjani lapho singalindela isithangami ke sabe izindaba. Ngihambe ngedwa asisipho Fikleni usibambele iCamera ubanele uBrazo Sondlo kuma graphics ophinde ke futhi asicontrolele iVTR njengalokhu ke ngaphakathi bese silekelelwa ke uyena usihle wakwangwini. Okwamanje ke ngithathe ke intambo ngiyiphonse lapha ke kubanele uBrazo Sondlo asithathe ke asifake ngaphakathi kuyothi ke mangabe sekubuywa sizobe sesiba nesithangami sabe indaba khona la. Kodwa ke mhlambe ngaphambi kokuthi ke ngithathe intambo ngiyiphonse ngaphakathi okunye ke okubalekile engicabanga ukuthi ke mhlambe ngiyakushiya la ke sibheke nje ukuthi ke wobani abantu esihlezi nabo kulolu suku lwanamhlanje ngoba nakho lokho is very very important. Brazo uzosibekezelela ake ngithathe ke mhlambe ke abantu esinabo la sihlezi nabo ngibona ukuthi ngabe bangobani bona sikwazi ukuthi ke sibalule ngaphambi kokuba sikwazi ukuthi ke siqhubeke sithole nje ke imbono yabo. Nawe mawukuthi ke ukhona in Thembisa crime is over. Ngicabanga mhlambe ke bebalula ke ukuthi ke mhlambe ke ithanda ukubanzima no Thomas lo esihlezi naye Tebu Mencam uyabingelela nayo MJ Mphahlele sizwile ukukhala kwakho lapha yake kwaba nomphiqixana siyabonga ke kodwa ukuthi usazise. Ernest Sibiya uyababaza kanti ke uAmando Mbalane ubabaza ke umsebenzi ke encoma umsebenzi wamaphoyisa kanti ke uDokotela MP uthi good job SEPS problem is expenditure of feeding these people. Ngicabanga mhlambe ke ukhuluma ngazo ke igela mkhuba mhlambe ke uma ngabe kusuke sezinga phakathi lapha ke ngaphakathi ke etoksini. Lokho ke esingaqinisekisela kona ukuthi ke yona into eyenzekayo. Wena sinawe nje ukuphi wena la ukhona njengalokho ke sihlezi sinawe kulolu suku lwanamhlanje. Ke sibone ke okay sizobuya ke bese sithatha ke isithangami sabe indaba ngale kwalokho ke bese ke siyayivala ke sithatha intambo siyiphonse ke ngaphakathi lapha kubanele uBrazo Sondlo asikhombise ukuthi ngabe ke iqhubeka kanjani iGauteng Provincial Legislature committee uma ngabe ke sibheka ngokwe community safety njengalokho ke nawo kamaphoyisa kulesi sifundazwe saseGauteng ekhona.
With the E2 project security industry, with the community, We have also activating the priority committee through the Prof Joints Priority Committee on migration or anti-foreign national migrations. One of the issues which we have touched there, Chief Jaka, yesterday, I see you phoned me, but I was busy in that meeting, is that we are having threats and possibilities that there might be people who might be displaced. We're going to request a plan of action from Department of Social Development. We're going to request a plan of action from the municipality to say when people are displaced, where are we going to accommodate those people as a matter of emergency. We are having a very big support in terms of air to ground. So we're going to do policing from air to ground. We're going to get a quite, I'll say on the airspace, we're going to get what is necessary to police on the airspace. We're going to get what is necessary to police on the ground, and this includes the drone. We had a full commitment of the role players. We are engaging communities within the province. For example, the community within Soweto, different communities. And our plan is quite clear. Before that actual date, we will be in a position to can also execute and try to check the state of readiness. I think Brigadier Joseph have indicated that we're going to start before the actual date, some few days before, which we call it before, during, after. So we will be in a position to can deal with those issues of March and March. But nevertheless, it is sporadic. We're taking note of this top station, though we're having a plan in terms of these stations which you have made a reflection, honorable members. I must indicate that in terms of the plan of assisting them, the provincial commissioner have dedicated 2 days. 2 days in a week, I'm not in the office, I'm outside, 2 days in a week. But that, it goes with the crime pattern analysis or crime threat analysis as we have made that determination. So the likes of Thursday, the likes of Saturday, but when we are moving towards your festive season, we're moving towards these public holidays somewhere there in April, you'll find that we're changing the provincial commissioner to concentrate or dedicate on this. So with that, these stations, they are given attention in terms of Operation Shanyela 2, in terms of integrated governmental programs, which MEC Mama Bulu chairs. And we make sure that we also, we also have the national top 30 and plus 5 contact crime high station. We also support these stations financial in terms of prioritizing the funding in terms of the equipment, the vehicles. We also prioritize those stations over and above the issues of the operational activities. West Rand, spiking of a crime, farm killing. I think Brigadier Chagalani, Honorable Chair, she have, while she was giving this, the presentation, she have outlined it deeper, but we can always make that information into detail in terms of that information. As you indeed indicate that it is a sensitive matter of which we have to make sure that we must not just deal with it as like numbers. I think the issues of Dobsonville, I think I've covered that. The issue of licenses, scrapyards. In terms of the Second-Hand Goods Act, of which one can relate the Act 6 of 2009, the police, we are responsible in ensuring that we issue those certificates that people, when they have to trade, there are certain things they have to keep, because when you open a scrapyard, there's a register which you have to keep. You have to keep your stock register. Things which comes in, you must keep the ID for the person who's bringing it. You must keep the description, where do you get it, so that at the end of the day, we have to have a record. If failure to do that, and then you can be charged. But what is important, the police officials, those who are appointed within the police station, they have to regularly visit together with the station commander. Periodically, they have to visit those scrapyards. So in terms of the law, we're allowed, but if there are some shortcomings relating to that, we can look what is that, what we have to do. Because those certificates, the station commander is empowered to can issue those, but where they are challenges, Chair, we can always check and look as to what is that, what we have to do. Recher Park, load shedding the police station. We'll have to deal with that because it's something which the community they experience. I think the DPC for support is here. We'll check as to say, didn't we provide the backup in a form of a generator, but we'll make arrangements that if the station, because normally when the station has got no light, we're having generators. If we don't have these big generators which have been provided through Department of Public Works and Infrastructure, we can be in a position to provide a generator, but a police station is not supposed to shut down when there is a load shedding. March, I think I've commented. I've commented on that one. Maybe to comment on this one, Chair, to say, with the law enforcement agency in terms of making sure that people who are illegal, we take them into the police custody with Department of Home Affairs, and appropriately Home Affairs make a submission for Section 212 statement, and the following day they go to court, the court process them. After processing them, then we can take them to the repatriation center for deportation. I think on my opening remarks, I've clearly indicated that we have arrested 36,122 for the period under review, of which 11,715 were illegal immigrants. In Gauteng, week in, week out on these meetings on Monday, which I appear, we are leading in terms of arresting the illegal immigrants. On my opening remarks, I also reflected on it. We are arresting between 500 and 900 per week. So yesterday on my presentation, it has been reflected on the national presentation. We had 900. I can't still recall which province was following us. So that we do, but it looks like, hey, we are not, these people, they are just here in our province as an economic hub, but we are dealing with that, and we will continue to deal with that. We take a note, Chairperson, lastly, as I conclude, that the establishment of the Community Policing Forum, we are mindful in terms of the establishment of Community Policing Forum in terms of Section 18. 18, I think there's a sub-paragraph of the Police Act, because that establishment sits there. But the challenge you have there, Chair, is that you go through the duly processes, because the duly processes in a police station, you start on the sub-forum. For example, the police station is having 4 sectors. You'll have a sub-forum there, 1, 2, 3, 4. You do the elections there. Then it's a bottom-up approach. When you're done, then you go to the police station. Those people who have been sitting in there or elected, they'll participate on the station. Then you come up with the executive for that particular station. On that process, when you're doing the elections, the problem with the challenge with the community is that when you are there with the community during the election process, it's not all the community who are there. After the elections, other communities, they come. Now they disregard or they damn this structure which have been elected constitutional. So you have those challenges. They say, hey, we don't recognize them, we don't do. But when they are elected, you have to follow the duly process, because there are a duration on which they have to sit there. And that process, if it's finalized, is the same process which has to be undertaken at the district, same process which has to be undertaken at the province and national. Hence, we're having Ubaba TJ Masilel, who is the current chairperson, but it is for the specific period. But we are saying we are mindful of that, but we can always do more if we have these collaborations, and more so the ICVPS. I thank you.
Thank you. I think some of the responses, definitely they will be part of the follow-up engagements with yourselves. But I think we like to thank you for the response, and also just to be part of this engagement and to appear in front of the portfolio committee. There are issues that will definitely need to follow them up. Maybe one of them is the issue of the precinct allocation, which is one of the, in terms of the demarcations, you did indicate that it is a scientific process, but I think it's something that maybe in the near future, you'd just give us a preview on how it's done. You know, maybe the information that is being used in doing that. And I think we need to also strengthen the issues relating to gangsterism. And I think we need to also thank the good success on illegal mining, particularly in terms of the pyramid, in dealing with the mid-zone of the pyramid on illegal mining. You know, because that's where I think the driver of illegal mining happens, where there is this illegal trading that happens amongst those who are not really digging, but who are involved in. I'm also just concerned about the informal knowledge that these mining companies, some of them are involved in illegal mining, and it's seeming that we are not really, maybe it's something that we are doing in terms of the intelligence gathering, but we know that some of the people who trade and export this gold or buy this gold are actually the formal companies that get these licenses, and they are there. So we would like to take this opportunity as a committee to, in a real sense, express our appreciation on the efforts of our police in the province and maybe even national, irrespective of what we are seeing in Madlanga. You know, like I've said in my opening remarks, there is a good that we see, and there's a good effort that needs to be done. My concern that I've always been raising is just the issue of how we really communicate our successes. You will see that a video of something bad that or the cops are involved in, it gets viral, you know, to a point where it also subsumes all the good work that we are doing. You know, the video of the female cop that received bribery went viral, but your successes don't go viral, you know, and it's something that we need to look at, you know, on how we I know you communicate, but in comparison with what we are seeing on the social media platforms or in general public, your efforts, like the arrests that you are doing, all the work that you know, that the one on the convictions that we got on gangsterism, for an example, I saw it. It was a very in small font in a corner in one newspaper, but it was not like, because now the successes of the anti-gang unit doesn't really get communicated, and it's one of the things that we need to deal with in terms of communication of the good work that you are doing. One of the things, maybe the second-hand forum, the Gauteng second-hand forum, maybe second goods. Yeah, maybe in the next engagement, we might just have to get a sense of the numbers and all that, because there is a great concern in the community that giving licenses, allowing them, also gives some form of license that people can steal and work through that. So thank you so much, Commissioner. I think this has been a marathon of engagement. We recognize that the trend is going down, but then the issue of perception and the volume still remains the big concern. And thank you so much to your team. We have started around 9:30, so I'd request that maybe we take a 5-minute break, comfort break, before we start the next session, which is not going to be very long. My intention is that by 2 o'clock, we'll all break for lunch and go home after that. So maybe if we can come back to say just stretch, take a bit of a walk, and so that we come back around 1 and we just have an hour for all the other reports to be done, because it's just a progress of the whole thing. And we really appreciate this. We don't take it lightly, but we truly appreciate it. Thank you so much, PC and the team. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairperson. Well noted.